welcome to this Committee of the Whole. It's a little bit of an unusual Committee of the Whole in that we're going to be doing some orientation, some things as we move along, but we are going to call this meeting to order. First, we have the evacuation procedure. If in the event of an evacuation, you will follow us out through these doors here behind us. The muster point is out by the gazebo. If these doors are blocked for any reason, we'll head out the other doors and we will gather outside. We won't come back inside until somebody with a lot more authority than any of us tells us it's okay to come back inside. So that'll be that. The agenda we have before us, are there any changes to the agenda, Ms. Phillips?
No, there's no additions.
Okay. So the agenda is there before us. Would anyone like to move adoption of the agenda? So moved by Councillor Mearns. Discussion items. First discussion item up is the, all those in favor. Thank you, Ian. It's going to be one of those days. It's going good. It's going good, thank you. Health and safety orientation. Let's start there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Magnuson. I'm the Health and Safety Coordinator for the town of Sylvan Lake. Today, I'm just going to go through our health and safety program with you in a little bit of explanation. It'll be relatively quick, but please feel free to ask any questions as we go through. The town is committed to reducing workplace injuries and illness through a comprehensive safety program. Our health and safety consists of protecting both physical and psychological injuries. During this orientation, we're just going to go over the why health and safety is important. We're going to review some of your roles in our health and safety, as well as kind of some general information as to what you need to know. So the town has what we call a CORE certificate. You might be familiar with that. It's a certificate of recognition issued by the province. So that means our health and safety program is audited annually. We are also compliant with all Alberta legislation, OH&S, that type of thing, WCB, and we promote very, very frequently with all of our staff, very much a health and safety culture within the organization. I'm going to go through some definitions. As elected officials, you have some different definitions than those of our workers. So as an elected official, you're actually not considered an employee or a worker under the MGA or OH&S. So what that means is the OH&S Act does not apply to you. So the town of Sylvan Lake opted for WCB coverage for our elected officials in 2025, and I'll explain that a little bit more in detail as we get through the presentation. So respect in the workplace, this is an important safe work practice and hazard ID, as well as legislation that we will find important to highlight here tonight. We don't tolerate any harassment or violence at our work sites or during work-related activities. These are considered workplace hazards, must be recognized and addressed. It's important that we know what they are, so I'll give you a bit of background on that. Harassment is any unwelcomed behavior, comments, actions, bullying that may cause offense, humiliation, that's a hard word, or affect a worker's health and safety. That includes any type of discrimination or sexual advances. Violence includes that threats, attempts, acts that cause physical or psychological harm, including both domestic and sexual violence. So those are some definitions. Incident reporting. In your role, you may be involved in an incident while acting out your official duties. Some of those types of things that need to be reported, they need to be reported immediately to the CAO when an accident or an incident occurs. Those types of accidents and incidents we want reported are things like a fire, a falling object, a cut, a scrape, a strain, a vehicle accident, a pinch, a spill, a burn, a slip, trip, or a fall, verbal or physical abuse. You'll find on your SharePoint site, there's a folder called Safety, and you'll find a variety of documents in there, one of them being a public incident form. That's the form you would use if you're involved in an incident while acting out your official role. I'll get into WCB now and what that coverage is, explain it a little bit to you. So like I said, in 2025, the town elected to have a deeming order granted. So what that means is we have a separate WCB account just for our mayor and elected officials. This coverage is only active when you're performing your official duties. It includes any injuries that might happen in that role, anything that occurs outside of that role. So while you're doing a personal errand or something of that nature, you do not have WCB coverage. It's just when you're acting in this official role. And again, important that that information, any incidents are reported to the CAO. Again, in that folder on SharePoint, you'll find a WCB form that needs to be completed.
I don't see that form on our council SharePoint.
There should be a folder Callie set up under safety. If not, I can touch base with Callie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe once set up, we could just be directed to it.
Yeah, it should be,
Great.
as I understood, it was going to be set up under your, I don't have access to your SharePoint, but there's a variety of forms that I'm going to reference that I'll ensure that they're all in there. I'll touch base with Callie after the meeting. That's great. Thank you. WCB, if you're not familiar with it, so what WCB is coverage to cover things like medical expenses, wage replacement, rehabilitation. If you're injured while acting on your official duties, WCB is also what is considered a no-fault insurance. So there would be an adjudicator assigned to any WCB to determine how the case works. Again, you'll submit a report along with that public incident report if you're involved in an injury. When you complete a WCB report is when you've had to seek medical attention. So if you've had to see your family doctor, if you've had to see a physiotherapist, if you've had to see a chiropractor, you would need to then complete a WCB incident form. Also, if you've had to be admitted into the hospital, we would do that. Or if you've taken time away from work, so your injury was so severe that you were not able to work, then we would also complete a WCB form. And again, those go into workers' compensation and are adjudicated by them. I'm just going to review a few of the common hazards in your role that you might find or be exposed to. So some very common ones would be slips, trips, and falls, lifting, muscle strain, ergonomics, environmental hazards, unruly patrons that we might have harm with verbal abuse, threats, physical assault, intimidation, emotional distress. Just important to always stay alert, work at a safe pace, and make sure that you're aware of your surroundings to prevent and mitigate any risks. So again, one simple one here is obviously when you're leaving to the parking lot at night, make sure you have a buddy, those types of things, just to be aware of. Some general behavior expectations we have organizationally is just, again, keeping up a heads-up attitude. If you're assigned PPE, now in your role, it's not gonna be something very common, but if you're visiting a workplace where PPE is required, please ensure that you're donning that PPE, reporting and correcting any unsafe behavior that you might witness or see. Make sure you maintain good housekeeping in your workspace. That's a really simple one. And ergonomics, that's another one. It's a very common injury for office type work. Ergonomics is a really important one. So just being aware of repetitive strain, stretching, that type of thing. I jumped ahead on the ergonomic side, sorry about that. Yes, again, another thing to think of is safe lifting, making sure if you are capable of doing the lifting or if you need a partner. And again, it's one of our most common and costly WCB claims are those around ergonomics. So encouraged to ask for help and take a stretch break. Next, I'm just going to touch very briefly on the ERP for this building. So Jazz spoke to it, or Councillor Jazz spoke to that earlier. We have an emergency response plan for this building. It will also reside in that safety folder so you can review it in detail. The emergency response plan for this building will have details under all different types of circumstances. So in the event of a fire, what you need to do, in the event of a medical emergency, all of that will be included in that. So just ask that you take a moment to review that. And I'll ensure it's in there, set up in that folder.
I found it. It's under council documents in the orientation package.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, I'm just going to touch on some emergency equipment so that you're aware of it in this building. Also, please be aware when you enter other buildings just to keep an eye out for it. But some things to be aware of: in the council lounge, there's a first aid kit if you ever require it. In the main lobby, the AED machine can be found. There's fire extinguishers at all the main floor emergency exits, as well as the west entrance vestibule. And as noted, the muster point is in the Lions Park gazebo. In the event we need to evacuate, that's where we would meet. Important to follow staff instructions in the event that there is an emergency. The staff are trained and will tell you what you need to do. We also have a program online, and you may be familiar or might see these in your travels throughout our buildings. This is our SDS program, or our safety data sheets. It's our chemical program that we use here at the town. So if you're ever exposed to a chemical or a product within your role, something spills, you get something in your eye, you can scan this QR code and it'll take you to the information that you need from a first aid, a hazard, and a handling storage information. So if you require it, it's accessible through anyone's phone with a QR code. You don't need a login or anything like that. You can scan and then search the chemical and it'll find the documentation that you need. I think Jolene put a checklist in front of everyone's stations there, just a review of what we've gone over, again to reference the safety reference materials, the ERP, which is the emergency response plan, the public incident form, the WCB instructions, there's the WCB worker report in that folder, and then also a personal safety guide that we put together just as some general information from a safety perspective. That's all in that folder online SharePoint that you can find. So this safety orientation checklist is just a record of what we did here today. So if you can all take a moment to review and sign it, Jolene will collect them later and we'll keep that for audit purposes. Does anyone have any questions? That was a quick run through.
Everyone seems pretty content. It's the sign of a really good report when nobody has anything to ask. You got a question? Of course, there was a question.
Where is the ERP in our folders? I didn't see it.
Go ahead, yeah.
Under documents, council orientation package, and then safety documents.
So we'll leave Councillor Ostindi to figure that out.
Yeah, I'll figure
And if nobody else has any questions or anything they want from Jenny.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you. I work at the fire hall and everyone would have access to my email. If you do have any questions or there is a safety concern or incident, please feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny. Next up, we have the 2026 capital budget presentation guidelines. Mr. Moore. Hello, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. How are you? Nice to see you all again. Some new faces. Yeah, tonight with this report, we're just looking to get some direction from council regarding the upcoming capital budget and 10-year plan presentations. We're not looking to have a discussion tonight with council about the contents of the budget, just to get some direction on presentation and format. So just to briefly go over this for some of the new councillors. So historically, both the operating and capital budgets have been presented to council and deliberated prior to the end of November each year. The 26 capital budget and 10-year plan will be presented to and delivered by council on November 18th. and December 2nd if needed, if time is needed. December 9th, we're looking for council to approve the 26 capital budget and 10-year plan. If the capital budget is not approved in this date, an additional meeting will have to be scheduled before December 31st to approve the 26 capital budget. An interim operating budget for 26 must also be approved by council on December 9th or prior to the end of December this year. I won't go into all the discussion information there, but if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So just going to the attachments. First one on page 26 of your agenda. So this is the format that we've used for that last number of years. And as you can see, this is the one that was used last year. We went with a 5-year capital plan last year. This year we're going to go back to 10 years. But this is how it's been presented. Each item has been individually separated out with the cost attached to it. And then a funding summary at the bottom of each section. And so that is the first several pages. So one option that's being proposed is to, which starts on page 29 of your agenda, is to go to a format. There's been lots of discussion about this over the last year or two, and how it is an option for municipalities, I believe, that we don't provide the individual costs for projects in the public document. They can be provided in camera to council if council so wishes. But the public document would just list all the projects, as you can see there on page 29 and the subsequent pages, with a total cost for that cost center, that function. And then the funding is there as well. So that is one option for council's consideration. And then the other components, you know, or the other option is to consider just doing it the way we've done it, as in the past, as presented in the first summary there. A couple of other items for council to consider and give direction on is including projects and costs for year X items only or not at all. And the other item is for the fleet. As you can see, in the past we have itemized all fleet, I guess, additions and replacements. So one option that we're looking for some direction from council on is to summarize replacements maybe into one total, a list of what they are, and give a total cost for the replacements, but just itemize additions to the fleet because the funding sources are different. So replacements are funded from the mobile equipment reserve, which has a source of funding which is separate, different from new additions to the fleet. So that is kind of my presentation and some discussion and direction we're looking to get from council this evening on those items.
Okay.
If I may?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure. Okay. Well, I think that's probably where we were going to go with.
Yeah, sorry, I know this is a little, so just to give, if you don't mind, to give a little history, there was a resolution that went to Alberta municipalities a few years ago. One of the concerns from some municipalities was that we present a capital budget, and so let's say, I need one with a number, you know, we do Herder Drive Phase 2 at 1.5 million. And that's listed in the budget as a clear number. And then amazingly, you do an RFP or a tender for that one. I guess that one's probably a bad example because tenders are a little bit different. And what happens is some municipalities were saying they were seeing then the proposals coming in at the budget. So when this resolution was brought forward, Municipal Affairs responded with, there's actually nothing that says you need to have everything in open in the budget, that you can actually have more of a summary. Now, I wouldn't say we would probably want to go quite to this extent. You know, we might want to take growth infrastructure as, you know, here's a list of this year's projects and here's the total number. and then here's, so break it down into smaller chunks rather than quite as massive. So what would happen is, if you look at 25's capital budget, we would bring that to you in closed session and have thorough conversations about what council wants to see in the agenda, what the budget numbers are, and what our plan is. Once that part is discussed, the next meeting would be an open, but you wouldn't have the individual projects listed. And that way, there's less risk of the proposals coming in exactly as your budget. Part of the conversation I'm hearing in the industry is this, and even with our, like infrastructure was one conversation, was we are seeing a pretty competitive, some pretty competitive bids coming in. And other municipalities are saying they're not necessarily seeing a big trend towards that, but some are still saying, you know, it is a bit of a concern. I did bring forward this type of agenda in a previous municipality. It was a little hard to get through, but because that idea of transparency, of course we want to be transparent, but we also want to protect the municipality from, to ensure that we're getting those competitive bids. So it's just, the big question here is, do you want the very open, transparent, every line by line in the capital going to the public, staying in the public, or do we want to do it as more of a summary? We'll determine what chunks should be presented, you know, like I said, maybe fleets here, and you know, break it down a little bit smaller rather than the larger areas. So that's the information we're looking for from council.
So Councillor Armanicki, did your question get answered, or you still have it?
Mostly. Actually, if I could ask Ms. Phillips then, on the budgeting question. So if you're looking at the 2025 capital budget, I'll just use the rescue boat as a good example. So is there a concern then, if it was itemized like this, then someone would be able to look at our budget and say, oh, that's how much money we're willing to spend on this boat, therefore I'm going to bid for that. And then a follow-up to that is, when we put out a bid process to the public, do we not set a budget in it for what we're kind of looking for? Is it just a question mark? And, you know, this is what we're looking for, and just put in your bid.
Do you want me to? Yes, that is exactly why. If the rescue boat was in there, the idea that you may get bids that are very close to that, with the idea that, well, they're willing to spend that, so we'll bid according to that. Sorry, refresh the second half, I lost it.
Yeah, and then the second question is more just unfamiliarity with the bidding process.
Oh, yes, sorry, I got it. No, we don't typically put the dollar amount in there. There are certain projects that you want to get more bang for your buck. So you might say, like for instance, a playground, you might say, we have X dollar amount. What can you do for this dollar amount? There's some projects you may do that on, but typically, no. It's just you put it out, the bids come in, and then they're evaluated based on whatever's listed in the RFP criteria or the tender process. They're evaluated by that criteria, and cost being one of those criteria, not necessarily all.
Mayor?
Would those line-by-line budget items, could they then become, so say we had this full discussion in closed session, we came out with the summary, this is the cost for each category. At the point when it would come back to council to award the project, at that point, could the number become public in the council report without any concern? You know, the budget amount was this came in under over budget, and then it become another portion where that is transparent, I guess, while allowing us to still see if there is cost savings by doing it this new way?
Yes, I don't see any reason that number couldn't be brought forward at that time.
At that point. Thank you.
Councillor Stindi?
I'm interested in trying the group by group bundling, if I can call it that, as Ms. Phillips described, in the interest of not, showing all your cards to someone who's going to bid on something. So that was brought up quite often in the last 2 years, and I'm game to trying that. But I think it's going to be hard to look back and say, well, did they? Because you can never predict. Sometimes we just have, 2-3 bidders, and how do you look back in time and say, did this actually make a difference? But collectively, over many municipalities, maybe there's information we can share and say, has it actually worked? What indications do we have? More data, in other words. So I'm game to try this lumping together. Just thinking of as projects are awarded though, there's going to be a certain point when there's only one more on the list. So by telling the second last item, everybody knows what the budget is for the very last item. And the closer you get to that, you can guess, oh, it looks like they have 1.9 million for that one piece of playground equipment and the road project. Guess what I think it is, right? So you can start to hedge your bets as a contractor, I think, if they were going to be really looking closely at the numbers to say, what should I bid if I'm nefarious? And it's maybe not nefarious, it's just real smart as a bidder. I did have another question though for Mr. Moore, just regarding reading the document, looking at the old format. Specifically, I was thinking about the waterworks programs that we had and the revenue sources. With waterworks, we received a grant from Alberta government. I forget the number. I'm going to say 1.3 million. That's just because that sort of stuck my head last summer or early summer for doing some of the waterworks programs. Where would that show on this document? And the second part of that is the word commission at the very bottom of the page, debt, other commission. Are we talking the Regional Waterworks Commission or something, or is that a different meaning?
Sorry, this isn't our final budget document, and this isn't, really the intent here is not budget at all. It's, do you want open or closed?
Okay,
And-
that's all
but
you
we'll,
want to,
And then
okay.
at the next committee of the whole, it'll be a very thorough capital budget discussion. So
Okay.
could we hold that for the next one, and
Yeah.
then?
I just wanted to know where to find info
Yeah.
in the general sense.
Yeah,
but
because this
as
one's
an
not the
example. Sure.
actual final
an example.
document.
Okay,
If that's okay?
yep.
Does that make sense? Do you agree?
I'll
Okay.
just note version 2025
And
is
then
still
we'll-
written on the next, on the new version. I'm assuming that's just,
It was
getting
purely
ready.
for demonstration.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry for the confusion.
Councillor Mearns?
Yeah, I definitely support changing the format. We've been talking about this for a few years, and to try to, limit the ability to pick a number and bid on it and against it. So I would be happy to see that format change for 2026, and I love the idea Mayor Hansen mentioned, like when that bid is won, we post what the budget it was and in comparison, and that provides that transparency of that specific item. So something I'd be willing to look at.
Councillor Johansson?
Yeah, just a clarification, as this is all new to me, obviously. So we're talking about, like, if we take Parks and Protective, or let's take the Recreation, Culture, whatever, instead of listing line by line, we're thinking about just saying we've got, in 2026, 6.7 million for recreation, culture, tourism, but not listing each part of it. Is that what we're basically saying? It's just 6.7 million for rec and culture? Okay.
Well, we'll list the projects,
Yeah.
but not a dollar amount for each of them.
For
So it'll
each
still
one.
be clear which
Yeah.
projects are being approved,
Yeah, okay.
but then the total dollar amount.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably, yeah.
I'm
be in
sorry,
favor
I
of that,
didn't
yeah.
raise my hand.
I'm not quite as conservative, as strict as others, I'll say. I'm pretty okay.
Is this,
I'm not saying anything, Madam Mayor, I'm just saying it's okay.
is this, sorry, is this, the 2025 numbers, like, 400,000 for phase 4, is that done already? Like, has that been done? Are we still on doing these things? Are we talking about those numbers or just 2026?
No, this is-
Again, what we do is this one's really not a budget discussion. We will do a summary of the 2025 projects and where we're at the corporate services, and then that's presented to all of council. So you will get that information.
Okay, gotcha.
But I don't necessarily have that information tonight.
Okay, yeah, no,
So I know,
just
yeah.
clarification, yeah. I
Yeah,
was just trying to,
yeah. So most of the projects are done, majority. Some get carried forward, but we will bring forward all that information.
Okay,
I think when we get pages with numbers put in front of us, we automatically go into that mode of, okay, we got to start looking at numbers, but really, this situation here is just, it's an example of what it used to be, an example of what we're potentially going to do. And I think, I agree with Councillor Mearns in the sense that we've been talking about this, and Councillor Stindy as well, we've been talking about this for years about how is it that every single tender we ever throw out there, every single RFP we throw out there comes back at exactly the same number as the budget. And it's just that, it's that they know what our budget is, so they're gonna come in at that number. So I like the idea of this. I also, just for clarity, I think knowing that we have the ability to say, okay, in camera, I need to see exactly what this comes down to, the breakdown. It's not as though there is a lack of transparency. It's just we're not wanting to show our cards to those who are going to take advantage of that transparency. And that advantage simply being, you know, if we budget $1 million for a project, it suddenly becomes $1 million project instead of an $800,000 project, which would be appropriate. So I like the idea of banking, of grouping the pieces, just with the understanding again that we have the ability to go through everything, single thing, line by line, and we do during the budget process. For those of you who are new, we do go through absolutely everything, line by line. There's no pieces that are hidden or obfuscated in any way. Any other questions that anybody had first round before we go back to a second round? No, we'll let Councillor Ostindi do second round.
Thinking of second round, just in terms of the bunching of the projects, like using the example of parks and protective services and right through to recreation culture, it would be nice if there's different types of projects we can lump together so that people at least for sure know the subtitles. Parks and protective services, there's a total. Recreation, culture, tourism facilities, there's a total. So it isn't the 6.7 million at the bottom for everything. It's actually at least by department or sub-department, but not every project. We're avoiding every project. But it's more transparent to the public to say, what do we spend on parks? What do we spend on protective services? What do we spend on recreation? What do we spend on culture? So I'm thinking, I prefer a little tighter to those titles.
So just a little more specificity.
Yeah, but not to the project, as we're saying.
Ms. Phillips?
So with that, it would be, for an example would be, and I'm looking at 25 here, it would be parks, and it would say 1-ton replacement, UTV replacement, paint liner, washroom, steamer, trailer, mower replacement, truck replacement, and at the bottom then it would say, here's the total dollar amount. So it won't just say parks, it'll say parks, it'll list what we're actually buying, so that we want that level of transparency, but then that total, instead of having, you know, the 1-ton replacement at 110,000, UTV at 25, it'll just have one total dollar. Yeah, okay, yes.
Any other thoughts, questions? Councillor Manicki?
Sorry, just trying to think of how to phrase it. I'm circling my head back to an email we received earlier about social media posting and stuff like that. And then I remember there was a comment in there, sorry, I'm going off book, but about kind of oh, I heard, I think is what the phrase was, or something like somebody told me. Is this really an actual problem we're seeing, or is this trying to prevent a problem from happening? Like, do we see legitimately bids coming in right at the budget price consistently?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. That's all I cared about then.
Councillor Bilodeau?
I have a little experience in this, actually, because we do tender on projects. When you give the number and it's public knowledge, why wouldn't you want to come in with a bid that? So we're talking about ways to save money for the taxpayers. And for me, it's simple. It's a great format. We're not giving the detail. We're still going to be transparent with the totals. And then after the fact, we can give the information. But it's an easy way to save some money for the taxpayers, in my opinion.
Very smart. Mayor?
Just wanted to give my feedback on the next question about including projects and costs for year X items only. I'm okay with not having costs on year X. So year X is a project we've identified in our capital plan that doesn't, it's not within the years of the plan, but we also don't want to lose it. So this could be, you know, we want a field house in Sylvan Lake. Well, that's not actually budgeted for in a year, but we might think, whatever that project could be. I think that it would be a waste of time to put a cost associated with a year X project. If it's not in the next decade, the cost will change so substantially that I love that we note them. I just don't see a lot of value there.
Well, year X projects really if you look at a UREX project, for instance, one right now, new library, there's no new library on the horizon. You know, it says 10 million. 10 years from now, that 10 million will be 20 million. So really, it's just an option of it being there, so we don't forget that it's something that we've considered. So UREX, I don't think we should ever put dollar figures on UREX because it doesn't mean anything. It's not real. It's not realized anything. Councilor Moritz?
Yeah, I would support that as well. And there's another question there just about fleet, and I would agree with only itemizing the new additions and then replacements on two different lines because they are funded differently, just to give that distinction. So I would support that as well. Yeah.
Councilor Stindy?
I can support keeping UREX more anonymous. What's our requirement, statutory requirement for the number of years of capital budget?
5.
5, okay.
Mr. Moore, is there more direction you need from us?
Yes, Councilor Payne, just to clarify with UREX, so list the projects but not the dollar amounts, or no projects at all?
Let's see a show of hands. Those of you who think we should have a dollar amount on UREX at all.
But I do like the projects listed.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have to come up with a way to identify what year all the projects slot in. So I don't know if we'll use an X to mark the spot or not, but
X marks the
we'll
spot.
figure something out. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Anything more you need from us, Mr. Moore? Excellent. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Next up, we have, council orientation. Is this where, Mayor Hansen, you wanted to jump over and take over? Okay, this is a very unusual thing to do in a committee of the whole, but I think Mayor Hansen plans on talking us to death for the next hour or so. So we're going to turn things over to Mayor Hansen and allow her to take control of the conversation since it's all going to be her anyhow. And there's no need for me to manage that. Do we want to take 5 minutes before, or is it too early? It's too early. Okay. Mayor Hansen.
Thank you. And the real reason is this is so that Councillor Payne doesn't have to acknowledge me every time I put my hand up on every item. So thank you for this flexibility on tonight. Ms. Reynolds, I believe we're starting with you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to walk you through the website here. Just get that. If you are trying to locate any bylaws or policies, here on our town website, you can just come to the main page. Click here on government, and you'll just go straight to bylaws and policies. If you scroll down, our most popular ones are listed, but if you're looking for more, you can click here, and they will all come up right in here. The same will be for policies.
And I'll just add, once you're in that screen, there's a search bar at the top left there. If you're looking for a specific couple of words because you don't know what bylaw something is in, you can do a search. It's not the best search feature, but it gets the job done if you're looking for something specifically.
Also, if you are needing to report a complaint that's not urgent, you will just, again, come to this website. You'll hit Contact Us, and from there you can report a problem. So it'll give you categories here. If you don't see what you're trying to report, there is a section that can say that's something else. You can just click on that one. It gives you the option to put photos, your name, email, phone number, and then you will just submit it, and it will come straight through. The other thing I will show you, Oh, yes. Yes.
Sorry, Councilor Burns.
Just a comment for the new councillors. The report a problem is a great tool, even as a councillor, to report things on behalf of a citizen. I've used it many times. It goes right to the department. Just an example, it was spring, there was a water runoff that was blocked off by a bunch of ice and snow on a neighbor down the road. They brought it to my attention. I went in, filled the form out for them, submitted it, and it was taken care of. So it's a really great tool to tell the community about, but also to use it to help yourself in with community members.
What you'll discover is it's the quickest way to get action, is that form. I've also posted that form on my socials so that people have access to it, and it's a great thing for us all to do, because a lot of people don't realize the form is there, but it's the fastest way to get action on just about anything that you need action on quickly.
Really operational. Also, the back of our business cards, we should receive them on Monday, so you'll have them to head away to Alberta Meanies. But the QR code is on the back of it. And one thing I often use when someone chats to me is, and has something really operational, you know, they picked up recycling and the litter was left all over my street, something like that. Here, you can put it in this way. If you don't receive a response back, my phone number's on the other side. They always receive a response back. But at least I feel if they bring something up with me, it is hard to say, well, call someone else, I have nothing. So your business card is a really great tool to pass that along so that they can direct it through the correct channels, but I also still feel like I'm being helpful in saying, you know, if you don't receive a response back in a couple of days, here's my phone number, feel free to follow up. I've never had someone actually submit something and not had a remedy for it. So you guys do a great job at that. Any other comments on the questions and concerns? Yeah, perfect, carry on, thank you.
Okay, the other thing I'll just walk you through is on your SharePoint, when you're submitting a committee report, you will just go onto the council SharePoint here, and then you'll see this here where it says submit a committee report. You'll click there. And then in this section here, it'll drop down and all the committees will be in there. If your committee or your event is not in there, you will just hit other, and then it will give you the option to clarify where you were. And then you'll hit submit. And then you'll get taken to this page where you will fill out the date and if you attended. And then from there, you'll go to a page where you'll scroll down, there'll be a few questions. There are going to be a couple categories that are not needed that will be removed. When you get to the bottom of that page, you'll hit submit. And then it will just take you right here to let you know that we have it, and it'll give you the option if there's more that you need to submit. Once they're submitted, I will pull them and we'll get them added to the next COW meeting so you guys can read them all through before the meeting, and you'll have the option to discuss them more in detail if you'd like.
If I can add a couple things on formatting and then go to my note, well, maybe I'll start with the note that I had sent. If you all pull it up or have pulled it up, you'll see there's a whole bunch of categories to fill out. What I've noticed is that no one fills all the categories, and really we can capture everything you need from a committee report with the couple that I had suggested remain. So that was the email that I had sent saying, I think there's a couple categories we could potentially eliminate. So I wanted to get your feedback on that. If we feel like we'd be missing anything by removing a couple of those, Councillor Payne?
Where is this?
In Council SharePoint.
Yeah.
If you can go right up to the first slide.
So
Do you see
right
there?
here on the bottom, you'll see.
I'll also note, we do have to fill this out after every committee meeting. Even if there's multiple people attending the committee meeting, please do take the time to do it on your own. But also the expectation for this is quite limited in what you put in. There are official meeting minutes. You are not expected to rewrite meeting minutes. This is for a couple of bullet points on, you know, an interesting tidbit that would be a part of that meeting, a big approval that just happened, just something that council needs to know. The meeting minutes have a delay because they aren't shared back with council until after they are approved. If you have a monthly meeting, a month later at the following meeting. If you're at a committee that only meets 4 times a year, it could be a 6-month delay before those meeting minutes are shared. So this is just that quick reporting point, so that we all get live time information when something happens, so that we're not caught by surprise if in community someone says, hey, it's so great the town approved my event, my grant application at Community Services. Thanks so much. And you have no idea what we're talking about. So just a great way to keep each other in the loop. I also use this, although it's not a committee report, but any influential advocacy conversations that I have, could be with a neighboring municipality, or it could be with a minister or an MLA. I'd put this in as either advocacy item or other, and just give a quick update back. You'll actually see one in this report agenda that just lets all of council know what happened in that conversation. I see some questions or inquisitive faces. Did you sort them out? Very good. Councillor Bilodeau, did you also had the look on your face? Did you found it? Nicely done. Any other questions on this, or was everyone else able to find it? Yeah.
So I'm just looking at it here. So I've got the report, so committee, for example, Pugdoggle Park design, date of meeting, did you attend? And then it's submit. So is after I hit submit, will there be a time to type in what I need to type?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
you can go ahead and go through it tonight if you'd like. Just put test in all the things and you can make sure.
You don't have to hit submit. Click,
Yeah.
put the date of the meeting and did you attend, and the rest will pop up for you right now. You don't even have to hit.
Oh, I see
submit.
it. Yeah, okay. Cool.
So this is where, how do we feel about eliminating a few of those categories? No concerns? We're okay to do that?
Decisions which could impact council's potentials.
I'll be honest, all I basically fill out is the points of interest and the financial ones, if there is something notable. And I put everything in points of interest typically, so. Councillor Cindy.
Just going to say Safari may not be committee report friendly. So we're getting blocked here on this one.
Okay.
And one question I have regarding the contact form online for the town, I submitted one a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure if it ever went through, and I didn't click the box to say, yes, I need an email back or contact me back. I'm wondering, does it have it should have, if it doesn't already, have an automatic, it's been submitted report. I know ours does.
Councillor Ostindi, if you're actually on your home page of SharePoint and you just scroll down, and if you want to go there, I can show you right now.
I'm thinking of the one for the contact form for town.
Oh,
for
the
public.
contact, sorry, I
Yeah.
was thinking on this.
Yeah, this one does give it. But
Yes, you can go back and you can edit your report after the fact.
Yeah.
Of course, don't edit it after it's already been submitted for print, but you can verify what you wrote anytime.
And I can, and I can say, like these reports go into our agenda package ultimately, so they are public documents. So you want to write it, we're writing it often for our colleagues to know what's going on, but it's also public, so you don't, you kind of want to wordsmith in a clear as way as possible so that someone in the public also is reading your notes and they can understand and
But bullet
No,
point is plenty, yes, well. Councillor Moose, before we go there, Ms. Phillips, I know we have IT support for council meetings. On our recess, would it be possible to have IT support? It would be great if we can make sure everyone can access the forum and address that challenge on the break. We'll probably take a recess in not too long. Councillor Mearns.
I forgot to mention this so many times in this last year, but community services is not part of the committee list.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Reynolds. Oh, Councillor Cindy.
one more community hub too.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Reynolds, anything else on committee reports?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Do you have any other topics for us?
Yes.
Going into yours?
Yeah.
Shall we take 10 minutes now and we can address that and take a break, and then we'll all be refreshed for the bylaw heavy portion? We'll take a 10-minute recess. Thanks. Council, I'll just note something before we carry into Ms. Phillips' portion of the presentation. We all know that we record this. The mic usage is so important, and not just passively. It really makes a big difference. Try and get within a couple inches of your mic. I will remind you if you don't. It is fascinating how little you can hear when you're listening to it online, when you're not really cozied into the mic. Like, side conversations are generally not picked up. So it is really important for those listening that can't hear it in the room to be able to use our mics. On that, Ms. Phillips.
All right, so my portion of the orientation is going over several of our bylaws and policies. I attached most of them. The rest are just summaries in here. I will share the PowerPoint. I just wanted to fine tune it as I was adding more and more information every day. So I apologize, I'm going to talk a lot. With that, I really encourage you to ask questions. And old council, if you have things you want to add or things I missed, definitely add that. I think this is a great opportunity to hopefully refresh about procedure bylaw, remuneration, and things like that. The page numbers on the bottom of not all of the slides, but many of the slides, like not the beginning ones, but as I get into the policies, are in reference to that bylaw or policy. So when I get into procedural bylaw, if you want to follow, I did attach those to the agenda item. If you want to follow on your screen, you're welcome to at that point. Before I get into the, well, I guess I can show you this. So this is, in the CAO bylaw, you'll notice that the org chart is different. We did have some recent changes to the org chart. This is the current org chart. Before I get into this, I just want to talk about myself. As was referenced, I sat at this table about 7 months ago and was interviewed for this position, or I guess 8 months ago. I've been here about, well, just over 7 actually. But the new councillors don't know anything about me, so I just wanted to give a little bit of my background, and if there's more information that's wanted, I mean, I can definitely bring that forward. So just to, this is to date myself, but I've been working in municipalities for 37 years. I don't know how that's possible. I literally started as a lifeguard at 16, worked my way up into management and just progressively from there. I've been in a management position for 28 years. And my background for education is I have a Bachelor of Management degree. I have a certificate in municipal management and leadership. And I also have my NACLA 1 and 2, which is National Advanced Certificate in Local Administrative Authority, which is a thing with municipalities. It's a route you go, which if you get all of those plus a certain amount of experience and you get signed off by others, you can get your certificate in municipal management and leadership, so your CLGM, and I also have that. So very high-end background. I also have, I can't count how many other courses. I am always looking to learn more. So just wanted to give a little bit of background on myself. We can also share my job description with you. Sorry, I meant to have that here and I didn't bring it, but we are going to talk about the CAO bylaw. So this is my team. We did have, general managers were introduced about 1.5 years ago now, I believe. When I started, I did bring forward council some ideas, and we did bring in a consultant, and we did an organization review. And with that, this is what we ended up with. So my directors are, the executive director of strategic initiatives is Sean McIntyre, who oversees communications, economic development, and tourism, and will work with council on certain initiatives such as the strategic plan and advocacy. My other directors are Director of Corporate Services is Darren Moore, Planning and Development is Kim Devlin, Public Works is Amjad Khan, Director of Parks and Protective Services is Ron Lebsack, and Director of Community Services is Monique Calicott. So those are my directors. They are all going to give you presentations at upcoming committee of the whole meetings about their departments. And we're really going to keep it at that high end when it comes to staff, because as was reiterated many times with George Cuff, I am your only employee. But this is my team, and you'll often see responses from my directors, because often you'll send me a question. I obviously don't have all those answers. I work with my team, and often I will get them to respond. Other times they give me information and I respond. My senior administrator is, so equivalent to executive assistant to the CAO, is Anna Cooper-Abel. So you copy her on every communication you send to me, unless it's sensitive. If there's something sensitive in there that you're not sure about, you can bypass that one, but I also would not send to council members, because that goes automatically to her and her team, which is Jolene and Callie. Jolene being our legislative clerk, She prepares all our agendas, does a lot of work with policies. And then Callie, of course, you all are familiar with, our EA to the Mayor and Council. So a very high-end overview of the senior team. Then I put in here, this is your section 3 of the MGA. It tells us what the purpose of us as a municipality are. So it talks about good government, well-being of the environment is a priority, economic development of the municipality, providing services and facilities to the municipality, maintaining a safe and viable community, and working collaboratively with our neighbors. And they've really been pushing that in the last several years with IDPs and I lost it, collaboration framework. Yeah, thank you. So the first bylaw I'm going to talk about is the CAO bylaw. This along with the MGA is what gives me my authority. And again, I tried to keep it high-end summaries. I don't want to go line by line through each of these bylaws. We'll be here till midnight. So your responsibility is to appoint a CAO. If there's ever a situation where I'm no longer in this role through resignation or termination, you have to appoint an interim CAO immediately. You can never be without a CAO. And no one on council can take on that role. And with that, I'm delegated all to carry out any and all executive and administrative powers, duties, functions as assigned by this bylaw as well as the MGA. And then, so council provides the corporate oversight, and I'm the one that implements, basically. Responsibilities. So my role is to, just make sure I'm on the right page here, is to advise council. So to provide advice through my departments so that you can make educated decisions on questions that are coming to council or agenda items. I coordinate the town divisions to action items. The council cannot exercise any power that is assigned to me. So as by the MGA and also reflected in this bylaw, if it's delegated to me, you cannot take on that role. And I cannot take direction from any individual councillor. So council is my boss, but you as a whole. So no one person is my supervisor. So that's where things come through with policies, bylaws, approving the budget is where I get my authority, and motions. So an agenda item comes to council, you make a motion. If it's defeated, then it doesn't move forward even if 3 of you thought it should, right? So just keeping that in mind when there's questions and whatnot coming forward, I cannot take direction from one councillor. So within my authority, I have the authority to hire staff, dismiss, promote, transfer, reward, and discipline employees without going to council first. Now it's a bit of more of a respect thing, I think, than anything. I do bring forward if there's some changes within senior management, as well as really long-term employees. I may update council just to give you a heads up, just so that as this happens in the community and say something big happens. If a director's leaving and it's on our end, I think it's just really important that you're aware of that, not just hearing it third hand in the community. We would send an email out as well, but I won't go into details because, again, that's quite protected. So I can't go into a lot of detail. I can give high-end information. I implement the internal reorganizations and manage employees' pay within budget and salary ranges. So it's within my authority to decide where people land on the grid, authorize that. Usually it's through my team. If there's big reorganizations, I do bring it to council as there was an informal and then a formal acceptance of the recent org changes. Just again, having been in my first year and there was quite significant changes and knowing we were having a new council, and if we had this completely new council, I wanted the new council to be really aware that there was support at that council level with those changes. I can attend council meetings, delegate powers, enforce bylaws, negotiate contracts to support governance. And then in an emergency, I do have the authority to spend money that isn't budgeted, but only in an emergency. Aside from that, there's a certain contingency, but beyond that has to be within budget. I work very closely with, I have a lot of respect for our Director of Corporate Services as well, so that if we're doing anything, I'm going to him to say, does this make sense? Because there's a little flexibility when it comes to operational budget versus capital, as long as that overall budget needs to be there, though. Any questions on CAO bylaw?
I'll just add in around our CAO review process and what that looks like. That is led by our Corporate Services Committee. And by that, it means that committee gets together and makes sure that we have a template to ask the questions of all of council. All of council participates in that process. That committee might be the one that chases you down if you don't fill out the survey. All of council reviews the results together. And then typically the mayor and two of those members, depending on availability, is the one who has the meeting afterwards. So in the George Cuff orientation, he did talk a bit about that process. And I wanted to relay what that looks like in Sylvan Lake. But that's one of the things that falls under our Corporate Services Committee. That is much easier. We used to strike an ad hoc committee every single time we went through that process. But all of council has a chance to participate. Any other questions on organizational structure and the CAO? Councillor Bilodeau.
It's simple. I had brought the flow chart that was blank and I'm filling it in and I'm like, oh, there's no Director of People Services. So you have an updated copy. Can you provide, I'll speak for myself, a printed copy? I'd like to put
Printed?
that in.
Yes.
Yes, please. Or you can send it electronically. What we have in what was sent was blank. So I like having.
On the SharePoint, there should be an updated one on the SharePoint.
Oh, well, in what we were sent from Jolene for the meeting was a blank one,
Okay,
so,
yes.
yeah. If it's on I found it on SharePoint, yeah, I did find it on SharePoint.
We also will all receive a copy of this PowerPoint
Yes.
as well after
Okay.
today.
Yeah, perfect.
And I will note for printing, although we can always request that printed, it should be a seamless connection to print to the back council. So if you ever feel like you need anything additional printed from these laptops, you should just be able to click to the council printer. If that doesn't work, let us know, and the next time we have IT support, we can make sure that's set up for us as well. Excellent. Any other questions? All right, let's move along to the procedural bylaw.
All right, the procedure bylaw, and this one does have some areas that need to be updated. One of the things that happened, and I have a slide later that talks to this, but the code of conduct has been repealed and is being replaced by a provincial one. But it has been brought to our attention, or we've noticed that there's several areas in there that still need to be addressed that we can't control behavior of councillors with the repeal of the code of conducts, but there's other things that need to go somewhere. Some are here, and then some are some changes that we just need to make in here that, and create a new document, because we've been amending and just consolidating them. So we will be bringing this forward in the next few months. The procedure bylaw, and then the province has also stated that they plan on making some changes, provincial changes to the procedure bylaw. There was concern that they were going to do the same and say, here's one for the whole province. But what we're hearing from municipal affairs is that it's actually about ensuring that the chair has the authority to control the meeting in terms of behavior, or in terms of some behavior, so that if a councillor was being disruptive, the mayor could remove that councillor from the meeting, and/or council could make the motion to remove the mayor if they were being disruptive. So that's what we're hearing. Don't quote me on that. That's just the conversation, and it seems to be the general direction where they're going. So once that comes as well, we'll be making some changes. This bylaw applies to all of our council meetings, so org meeting, regular meetings, special meetings, and committee meetings. This applies to those. Our precedents of rules, and I know that George Cuff spoke to, we don't follow Robert's Rule of Order. We do. So what we have in our precedents of rules is we follow the MGA first and foremost, other provincial legislation, then the procedure bylaw, and if there's something that's not in here, we can reference the Robert's Rule of Orders for some direction as well. It's also a great course, effective meetings.
The Effective Meetings Elected Official Education Program is the best one I have taken in all of my time on council.
I'm really hoping to bring it in, actually, for all of us.
We'd love to have that for council and for potentially some administration that are involved in our meetings. Just really great about some updates and we've incorporated a lot of things that I learned from it, but it was a great meeting, a great session.
So then, the types of meetings we have, our organizational meeting we just held, this is one area that needs to be updated in our bylaw because it says that we do the swearing in during the organizational meeting. The legislation has changes and we were required to do the training the swearing in prior to the training. So a little bit of a change there. So again, we will make that change. We were okay with the bylaw being wrong in that provincial legislation trumps us. So we were fine there. Within that agenda, as you know, since we just did it, is the deputy mayor appointments, seating arrangements, committee appointments, and meeting schedule. So we have this annually in October, the second meeting of October. Again, the first one a little bit different, but next year we'll do it again, and we'll go through all these appointments.
Sitting here, I don't get to see
Yeah.
hands because I'm looking here. This is.
I'm just going to mention under council orientation, there's a requirement to have a motion for seating, and I don't believe we did a motion for seating. So we'll have to bring that up at the next regular council if that's...
Yeah. And I think part of that intent, I think, is just to change that part as well. It's not a typical process, but it'll be up to council on whether you want to keep that in there or if it's just that that the mayor and deputy mayor at the time review the seating arrangement. It is a good idea to change the seating
Yes,
every
I agree.
meeting,
Every year.
Every year. It is a good practice, so we'll figure out how to word that moving forward, though. But you are correct. Regular meetings, we hold these the second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 4. They go 3 hours, and then you need a motion to extend the meeting. If we're rescheduling, we typically do it the day after the meeting. So the Wednesday. This next stat, we're actually doing it the Monday because we're all going to be at conference the following day. If we're changing a council meeting date, we do need a motion. So we can't just say, we're going to move this meeting without a motion of council because it's a motion that sets the meetings. A little more flexibility with committee of the whole because we've written in there that we will cancel without agenda items.
Correct. That's what my question was, is do we need a motion to cancel?
We should for council meetings, technically, which does create challenges. But it's rare that we would cancel a meeting. You should almost call a special meeting to cancel a council meeting, which could be a quick online, but technically because it's a motion and there's nothing in there saying that, but yes, it should be a motion. So it should be a meeting.
I will note, it is not unusual to cancel committee of the whole meetings. We probably aren't going to see that in our first 3 months because we've packed in training and other things during these meetings. But over a typical annual cycle, there is just times of the year where if we have one agenda item, why would we not cancel it and clump it into another one if it's not time sensitive? That's, I could see 6 months from now, that being a fairly standard practice, the odd time, especially certain times of year in December, other things, or often the first one in January because the agenda items are really created in the 2 weeks prior to the meeting. There's not a lot of new agenda items that are being created the week of Christmas, which means the first one in January often is light or those kinds of examples. So it does happen. We just, we'd rather have the dates in and have the placeholders held, and then it is a gift to all of us when the night becomes available.
Special council meetings are an added council meeting for typically something that's emergent that comes up that needs to be dealt with prior to the next council meeting. It can be called by notice of the mayor or with a written request from and support from majority of councillors, and which is there's some regulations within the Act. If it's less than 24 hours notice, more than 24 hours notice, we can get the advertising out appropriately. If less than 24 hours notice, we do need to sign a waiver with majority of council supporting that. And at that meeting, we can't add agenda items. You can only discuss the items that you're calling the special meeting for. I can't think of off the top of my head an item that, we haven't done one since I started, I don't think so.
Very rare. The times you'd use a special meeting, potentially if it was a land purchase that was time sensitive, I could see a legal item we needed to be made aware of, or a personnel change might require a special meeting, but it's pretty unusual outside of that.
And then committee of the whole is a committee of the whole of council, is literally what committee of the whole is. It is this meeting, it is it's still held with the same formality as a regular council meeting, but there are no motions. We cannot make motions at these committee of the whole. So you'll see, sometimes hands might go up or it's a thumbs up, but it's just that general idea for us to, it's not really to give us direction, although it kind of is, but it's to bring back to the next council meeting so that we ask you questions so we know what to bring forward for, maybe a policy or budget to say at the next council meeting we're more prepared in those agenda items.
And really, if I could just share the advantage of that is, especially a really complex bylaw that was coming back, to do that on the floor at a regular meeting of council, once you have a motion on the floor, it means every time you say, oh, I like this, or I don't like this, you're having to amend that motion because the motion's already on the floor. So because there's no motion at committee of the whole, it gives us the flexibility to give a bit of direction so that when it comes back for an actual decision, it's a little bit closer to what we'd like, and we've narrowed the options a little bit. You could still change everything we said when we get to the regular meeting. We're not constrained by that direction that we give, but it certainly helps us not have to make 10 amending motions when we have something already on the floor in a formal state. Also, big decisions are pretty rare that the first time you see it, you're making a decision on it. So committee of the whole is also the opportunity to flesh out what questions we might want more information to come back by the time it does come back. If you read that report and go, well, this isn't enough detail for me to make a decision. I need more information on this. The CAO may not have that right on the spot. So it gives us a bit of lead time to ensure that we get what we need for a correct decision.
And so we can hold non-statutory public hearings at these ones, and delegations that don't require a decision we can hold at committee of the whole. They are chaired by the deputy mayor and held the first and third Tuesday of the month when, and it says in there that meetings may be canceled if there's a lack of agenda items. Quorum. Quorum is the majority of council. If there's a tie vote, so if one council member is absent, the vote is defeated. I don't think that's in this slide, but it came in my head, and there we go. If there's a loss of quorum, then the meeting will be adjourned. If it's a loss of quorum because there is a pecuniary interest, or if, oh, that's an interesting one. If there's an absence during a public hearing, then items will be addressed at the next meeting. Just realized we did. Oh, that's the legal session we're talking about. We'll go into more detail. There's a legal session coming up. I think it's in your calendars with Reynolds Mirth back in Blackfalds, and they're going to talk about what pecuniary interest is, as well as the new conflict of interest, because that is new in legislation. So you as a councillor have a statutory duty to attend council meetings. So you cannot just not attend council meetings. And what our procedure bylaw states is that you can't miss more than 2 regular meetings or 2 committee of the whole meetings in a calendar year without prior approval from council. So no more than 2. That is the right wording,
just
correct?
to re-clarify what you said, you have to vote on every item unless you've declared a conflict. So you can't sit on the fence on something. Mm-hmm. Either you have declared a conflict and you've removed yourself from the room, or your hand goes up for either in favor of or opposed.
There's very few ways to be removed as a councillor, and that is one of them. Refusing to vote on an item is a way you can be removed by the province for not voting on an item. It's an interesting one, especially when they've added this new conflict of interest. So curious how that plays out. Electronic participation with our procedure bylaw, you do need approval to attend a council meeting electronically. So you can do it phone or video. Roll call is required if you're attending remotely, and closed member participation, you need to ensure that you're in a private environment. You shouldn't have your family listening in on a closed council meeting, right? The public may join electronically with prior request. We do live stream, so I mean they can watch it live regardless. And recordings of regular and committee, the whole meetings are available for 12 months on the website. If you want to go back and, you know, it's a great, you know, actually Councillor Winicki, you brought forward some information about a question that was going around on social media, and we were able to find that information, and then you can go back and watch those council meetings. So it's a great way to look back for information. If we're in a council meeting, this happened very recently, or committee of the whole, and our live stream is not working, we continue with the meeting. We'll take a break, try to get it working, and if it isn't, we do not stop the meeting because of that.
If I can just chime in, you've got some sheets on the corner of your desk. On the top right-hand corner, it tells you what it's for, but there's a request to attend a meeting electronically. This is the form that you would fill out if you wanted to attend that way. The direction of the past council and what's currently in our bylaw is that this isn't You're not meant to attend meetings electronically when you're on holiday. There's a set list of reasons why you could put in that request and why you would be approved for it. It's if you've got a work demand relating to your daytime work, council-related business, so if you're attending a training or a conference and you'd like to attend virtually, it's an option. Medical reasons, family care, other court jury duty, those types of reasons. But you would need to pre-plan this and put it in ahead of time. If you are sick earlier, that day, you are just allowed to be sick and miss the meeting. That actually doesn't count as one of your absences. But if you wanted to submit this that day, really that's the only reason we would consider it the day of. We have walked it on to the start of an agenda to get that approval to start. But that's really not the intention of it. You should be allowed to go on vacation and you should be allowed to be sick and not feel like you need to attend the meeting virtually. But this is the form that you would fill out. You'll also find these on SharePoint, and they're located near your mail bins inside of the council lounge. Yeah, Councillor Iwaninski.
Just given what I do for a living, I do a lot online. If I was to want to do it while I was on holiday, is that like a no-go? Like, I just wouldn't want it counting against me if I was like, I can take a couple hours on holiday.
We would have to talk about that when we bring it back. It is not an option to even request for that. And really, we were quite intentional. I'll say some of the fear is for allowing that. There are some municipalities that you could be a councillor remotely, and we want to be very clear that that's not an option for you to go away for multiple months of the year and still meet your attendance standards. We really do value that you are in community. And we didn't know how to bridge that when we discussed it, of saying, well, yeah, maybe you could, but you can't take too long of holidays because then you're out of community and you can't. So when we bring it back, that's certainly a discussion we could have, but that is the intention behind it. Yeah, Councillor Payne. That's exactly.
With that being said, there have been times where, like, I've been, there's time, like, I was on vacation one year, a few years ago, and we were talking about a topic that was very important to me. So you are able to, in situations, it's just you have to have council's agreement to it before you do it. So if there's something coming up on an agenda that you feel passionately about and you want to be a part of the conversation, because you're not here does not preclude you from being able to be part of the conversation. So.
I will say, Councillor Payne, I'm not sure if your memory is correct because our current bylaw does not permit that for a reason that is not listed on here. Does it? Councillor Mertz?
Yeah, I think for some clarity too, you can attend, no. So let me word this correct. Participate and still be part of it, but it would still go against your time away from council.
Councillor Ostindi.
I was just going to add, some of the discussions too was really around the idea of how well do we participate online when everybody else is in the room, and I'm one who would advocate physically present in this space, hand signals, whatever. Greater debate, better debate occurs, and yet at the same time I know, because my family is older, I can rarely see my children. I have to travel. There's a lot of pressure on me to be trying to balance that, being here for every meeting and being away. So I want to advocate for more flexibility, but I also agree that the greatest and best debates occur when we're here in the room.
So this will come back though, and if that's something anyone feels passionately, this is the current, what is written. That is something that is always up for debate. Council gets the choice to make these rules for themselves. These are just the current ones that we're living under until we get to that point. So if it is something you're passionate about at that time, be ready to debate. Ms. Phillips. Sorry for that off.
No, it's good. Okay, chairs. As the chair, so the mayor during council meetings, deputy mayor during committee of the whole, and you may be a chair of another committee if you're on those committees, although also keeping in mind what George Cuff said. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, so being careful of that. But.
I am certain we actually have that specifically in our bylaw that says when there is citizen members.
That we aren't the chair, so I think it's just the
Would only be the only time you would chair, I guess, how that would, if it was a regional committee and it was all elected officials on it. That's the opportunity that you could be a chairperson.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. I missed that. So as the chair, your duties are to open and chair, so run the meeting. Your responsibility, you should be very familiar with this bylaw because your job is to also ensure order in the room. You decide on all questions of procedure as per the bylaw. So if there's, I actually have this note somewhere else, but it feels like a good time to bring it up. There are two, and I didn't put this in my PowerPoint. If you're in a meeting and you feel that there's an issue with the procedure within the meeting, you can call a point of order. So if they're not following the procedural bylaws, if somebody's going against the procedure bylaw and you don't think it's appropriate, you can interrupt as a counselor, not as staff. As a counselor, you can interrupt and call point of order, and then it would be up to the chair to decide if that was accurate and to uphold that. Your job is to ensure that all members that wish to speak on a debatable motion are granted the opportunity to do so. Now, I did see in one spot in the procedure bylaw, it talked about 1 time each. I know we often give a couple times each, so I kind of wrote that in here. Again, something to consider as we're updating this bylaw. The intention isn't typically to go around the room for 45 minutes, again, at the discretion of the chair. Right, so sometimes there's more information needed, but that's also partly why and that's more of a council meeting. At this room, there sometimes is more conversation here because we're trying to get to that end point to bring back to a council meeting. But again, at the discretion of the chair. The chair also generally allows others to speak first. As the mayor, you're recognized as the mayor and the chair, and there's respect for that position. So if you as the chair or the deputy mayor is coming in and leading the conversation, you're kind of shifting the room before there's debate. So the idea is defer to the room, let everyone speak, and then typically you as chair speaks last. Inputting throughout as appropriate, but that's the intention, is let others in the room speak first. Comments? Meeting procedure. Oh, sorry, this is for electronic devices. This is just a high-end one. It's interesting that it's in here because we do live stream everything, but essentially is that people can't come in the room and record the meetings without permission of council, and if they do. So it would be more of a thing back when, I'm assuming, when the paper was here and recording, and they can't leave their device here and leave the room. It's just to protect, but again, if we were on a break and there was casual conversations going on and somebody's recording, that would be more the issue.
I'll give a real life example as well of why we always do closed session in the Luzelle room. There was a time where we had a meeting out here, everyone had left, and we continued on and did our closed session right here. And then we realized a media phone had been left on a chair. It was not done intentionally, but that certainly opened us up to some real risk having that legal conversation. So now just an added layer of protection on top of you can't leave it around and have it being recording conversations without being aware of it, is we also move rooms when we do that closed session portion of the conversation.
Okay. Adjournment, a motion to adjourn can actually be made at any time unless the floor is occupied, so not while somebody's speaking or if there's voting underway, and it's made without comment or debate. Typically it happens at the end of the meeting though, and the chair calls, because any items that aren't finished at that council meeting, either a special council meeting needs to be called to finish those items or they get added to the next agenda. So it's not a typical thing. It would be more, it'd be a very rare occasion if that was to happen. But then the chair may adjourn the meeting once the agenda items are complete without a vote. Consent agenda. This is an opportunity to group multiple items together to be voted on with one motion at the beginning of the meeting. Typically, administration compiles a report that lists all the agenda items that we feel are suitable for consent agenda. It includes things like the minutes, typically don't require debate. First readings of bylaws, it says bylaws, it should be first readings of bylaws. Typically, you wouldn't do second or third. I don't think we can actually with our bylaw. Reports, your council reports will be in there, minor updates. So we go through, and then you as a counselor always have the right at the beginning of the meeting. You're given the opportunity to ask any clarifying questions first, but if there's something you want to debate, all you need to do is ask for it to be removed from the consent agenda. There's no debate on that, it's just removed and it's now placed on the regular agenda and is addressed in order of the agenda. So when somebody makes that motion, and if there's a conflict of interest or pecuniary, you have to remove it from the consent agenda. So if you get to that item and you say, well, I have a pecuniary on that, then we'll remove it, and then at that point, you declare pecuniary.
Just note on our agenda cover pages, all items recommended to be a part of the consent agenda have an asterisk on them. And not only if you want to remove it for debate, I would also remove it if you have really any detailed questions on it. Anything more than a one minor clarification, that type of question, better safe than sorry. I'd rather pull it off than end up being in a back and forth question period about a consent item in the process of that. And it is quite, not super regular, but it is not unusual at all to pull items off that consent agenda. So if you have those further questions, feel free to ask for that. I will make a specific call at the start of that item and say, before the motion is on the floor, if there's any items we'd like to remove, and that's your cue.
Another one that ends up on the consent agenda often is a committee of the whole agenda item that's been discussed. So policies often. We've debated that or discussed that. You've discussed that and debated that at a committee of the whole. We've been giving very clear idea of what you guys want as council, and then we may place that on the consent agenda, anticipating there won't be discussion. The mayor is very good at making that comment to the public. Just so you know, this was discussed at a committee of the whole, just so people don't think we're just going, oh, just approve everything, we don't need to discuss it. So there is that former previous discussion, and the agenda report is in there. But again, if you are not comfortable with that, just ask to have it removed. Agenda preparation and delivery. It's the way the bylaw is written is that in consultation with the mayor and deputy mayor. So the reality of the process is typically administration creates the agendas, the cover page, and then Ms. Reynolds will send that out to the mayor and deputy mayor, and if they have comments or want clarification. So if there's anything that was requested further than that, we can do that, but that's our current process. And then, so my job is to set the agendas with my team. I distribute the agenda and attachments to council and administration and the public 2 days before the meeting. So 2 business days, so we do Friday at noon. They always go out by then. The late items requiring CO approval, this is more of an internal process because council doesn't, we're going to get into notices of motion. So a lot doesn't get added up from the council to staff without those notices of motion. And at a council meeting, again, that would be rare because of the process we follow, but after the agenda started, you need unanimous consent from council if you are going to add an item late. So with reporting, I just want to talk a little bit more to this. I had another note to myself here. So our job as administration is to provide information on the agenda report for you as council, to give you as much background and non-biased information as possible. Now, administration, keeping in mind that the people that are preparing these reports are the experts internally on these areas. So they're bringing forward information and then provide you with a recommendation. They should also be providing you with alternate options. So they may say, we recommend this as administration, but we're typically also giving you very valid other options because you don't have to agree with us. This is your decision. We're not part of the debate. Our job is to give you the non-biased information, to give you the opportunity to then ask questions and come to a conclusion after debate with your fellow councillors. And then if there's any questions of clarification, to make sure that you're asking those questions to ensure that you're as comfortable as you can be before you're making a decision. So that's kind of our role as administration. We provide the information, you debate it. It can be totally different than what we provide. Even if the option's different than what our option, we can help you formulate the motion if needed. And then at the end of this, and I know I repeat this a few times throughout here, if there's a 4-3 split vote on an agenda item, and let's say it goes against administration's recommendation, that is the motion of council. So your job as councillors is now to support that motion that came through because you all own it. Whether you agreed with it or not, it is your motion. Your job is to support that. And as administration, our job is to support that and make it happen. So that's the process with that.
I'll add 2 things on the agenda preparation. One is just as you go through your agenda, if you find, say you look through it on Friday or on Saturday, and you go, hey, this is great, I'd love to make a decision on this, but I'm missing a bit of information. I would always recommend that you email that to the CAO ahead of time. It's not that you don't still ask the question at the council meeting, but if it's, I need to know more about this reserve account or about this, it may not be information that you have, or that we have in this meeting right as you ask it. If there's really something you know ahead of time when you read your agenda package that you just need more, sending an email to say, hey, at the meeting, could you provide me some further background on this, this, and this? It would help them do a better report back to you. You're certainly not going to have any discussion on it ahead of time. But if there's an obvious gap, something that you need to be able to make that decision, please do send it in with as much notice as we can give. Councillor Payne.
One other thing that I would just point out, and I in no means, no way intend to be condescending in this, so I apologize if it comes across that way. But read your agenda package when you receive it. Don't wait until Monday evening to read your agenda package. Like, I appreciate that people are busy, but one of the things that I've discovered, and I discovered this very early in my tenure, is there are lots of times when I don't have the information that I feel comfortable. So I need to ask someone, and asking them on Friday gives them Friday and Monday to be able to get you the information. Sometimes what happens is you're asking a question for information that they can't possibly circle the wagons and get figured out. So read your agenda package when you receive it. The information is all there in a lot of cases, but sometimes the vital piece, it's not to be found. And asking in a meeting for a piece of information that's vital could very well mean that item now has to get punted 2 weeks down the road because the information isn't available for you. So when you receive the agenda package on it's not Thursdays anymore, it used to be Thursdays. When you receive the agenda package on Friday, read it Friday, because there's nothing worse than walking into a meeting feeling unprepared. And it's hard on the people around the table with you if you're in that situation. So yeah, that's one piece that I would throw at you.
Councillor Ostindi.
I was just going to say our protocol also when we ask a question of CAO is to copy
Yes.
all council members so that we all think about it too, and then CAO will give us all the answer.
And we will talk about communication a little bit, but let me say that's why there's so many emails, because everything we do includes all of us, and it's just so we all have the same information. But there is a lot of emails. The other thing I just wanted to note, I think it will be a budget request coming up, but to think of, we're hoping to move to a more digital process. We don't have a great means to do that right now, so that will be an upcoming budget request, whether it be a program or some sort of software that you can have your own notes in, that you can communicate things back, that there's all kinds of different ways you can tab things and access the agenda, getting to the right sections. So we're hoping to get a bit more digital and get away from killing so many trees. There's just a bit of a technology portion that's missing for us to get there. So hopefully that's somewhere we'll be going next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And if I can also comment on I agree, asking those questions in advance. The other part is, and again, I say this later, but we are on the same page. We are on the same team, council and staff. We are on the same team, and we want to make council look good. And it's great if council wants to make administration look, or not make administration look bad, right? So when you can ask those questions or provide that feedback that isn't in a public council meeting, we are all on the same team. So, and we can do more for you. Meeting minutes, and when it says the CAO, I don't actually write the minutes, but it's the way it's worded, right? Everything is my responsibility and it goes out to my staff, but I prepare a written record of all council meetings. So with that, I really want to also point out, we do record votes on our council agendas. It is something that was changed with the last procedural bylaw. So all the votes are recorded on there. Members of the public who speak are listed. If you leave the council chambers during the meeting, we take breaks about every hour, but if you did need to leave the room, you are allowed to leave the council room for washroom break or whatever, more emergent, I guess, but you are allowed to do that. It is recorded in the minutes. You leave the room, you come back, those kinds of things are recorded. Delegations and open mic. So delegations is an opportunity for a member of the public to come and speak to council. This is one I am recommending some changes to. Right now, there's no time limit on it. Typically, there is a time limit. You know, maybe they have 15 minutes to present, and then council has, say, 15 minutes to ask questions. I'd like to consider that when we update this bylaw. They're only allowed to present on an item, a topic once. It cannot come back to council, and ours is worded very vaguely in it talks about, you know, timeline that council feels is appropriate. So typically, they're often written within the same year. You can't bring the same item or similar topic back more than once. Council at the delegations is you have an opportunity to ask questions, but and then if there's a motion required later on in the meeting, we can do that as well. Open mic is an opportunity to, also for the public to speak, but in a less formal manner. Delegations, they provide the information in advance. It should be in your agenda package. For the most part, sometimes we're inviting them, other times they're requesting. But open mic, we have an opportunity before a council meeting to sign up, and there's 15 minutes total. Each member of the public that wishes to speak has a maximum of 5 minutes. We have our timer on for that. And again, council can ask questions. Sometimes out of these items, there are actions that come from that where, you know, staff will look up more information because of a complaint that came through, or you know, council gives us some direction. So.
2 notes on that. I often refer people to come to council in this process because, of course, a one-on-one conversation has no power. We make decisions as a group. So it is the most beneficial way for a resident to get their point across is to have them come speak to all of council. And the 2 ways I'd recommend this, if they just need a minute or 2, that's for open microphone, a quick agenda item without planning. If anyone actually wants to present to council, I would always have them pre-register and come as a delegation. It gives them a bit more time, lets us prepare on the topic. But for both of these, there is no immediate response given. And I say that at the start of my spiel. You know, we're happy to hear from you, but we can't give you an answer. It's because before we would give an answer, we're only getting one side of the story. We need to have some administrative background. There could be some history that needs to be shared. So after one of these, council has the opportunity to either just take into consideration in future decisions. That's often what happens at an open mic or a delegation. Or they could make a request at the end of the meeting for, you know, can we have some additional information back on that? We could action that later, but it will not happen in the same meeting that they speak. So when I'm recommending a resident come and speak to us, I always also tell them that it will be a little bit unsatisfying because you won't get an answer immediately, but this is the way to get in front of all of council. So, yeah. Councilor Iwaniki.
How much notice does administration like to get on the list as a delegate?
Delegation has to be the Wednesday prior to the meeting. Yes, because the agenda packages are finalized on the Thursday, printed on the Friday. So, Councillor Ostindi? Okay. And that does sometimes even look like someone registering as a delegation the Wednesday prior, and they may not have presentation materials. That's not ideal. We always appreciate when that's part of the package, but sometimes they don't have a presentation. They're just coming to speak and want more time, and that is acceptable. Ms. Phillips.
Okay, voting. Just our process for this. Prior to a motion, questions of clarifications may be asked. When we bring forward an agenda item, it gets brought forward, you ask questions. And then before any debate, you need to make a motion. Once the motion is made, it may be debated. The chair, and that's where I was talking earlier about having the opportunity, everyone having the opportunity to speak. The chair controls that and then decides how much back and forth there is, typically up to 2 times. And I really want to, stress that it's one of the general direction they give when you take training on this is bring forward if you want to bring something new, but it shouldn't be an opportunity to just keep saying the same thing over and over again, right? You should be bringing forward new information. And then the chair puts the motion to a vote, so it calls the question, and then the vote requires a majority. And as I said earlier, if there's one person missing and it's a 3-3 vote, it is defeated. And as I said earlier as well, once it's approved, it becomes your motion, regardless of how you voted.
Top part there, but I'll add to it. and those that have watched a council meeting would kind of know this, but pre-motion is the time where I would say we have more outward-facing questions. If you have questions of administration, we would typically ask that before the motion is on the floor. Once the motion is made, then we shift more to questions for each other, those kind of debate items. You still within, once the motion's on the floor, could ask a question of administration, but we would not do any debate, any pre-work prior to the motion being on the floor. So that doesn't, it's kind of a distinct end to that portion in the meeting, the outward side versus around the horseshoe.
Because the debate is not administration. We're only providing information. Notice of motion. I talk about this twice. I think my second slide, because it's in two policies, it's in a policy and a bylaw. I think the second one actually explains it a little better than this one. But the way we do with our procedure bylaw is council can't just email and say, I want to add this item and this item and this item on the agenda, and then staff goes around and creates agenda items and puts it on the agenda. The way we do it is that you declare a notice of motion. So it's brought forward to a council meeting. It's not debated, discussed at all at the first council meeting. It's brought back to the next council meeting. That's where administration might add some information. A lot of them, it's you then present the notice of motion. It's an awkward one. It's because we won't typically provide any information if it's just giving us direction to go and bring back more information on something. But for instance, we had one where it was the notice of motion was to paint a crosswalk. And so we did provide information because there was more background to that that we felt council needed to know. A lot of them were just looking for direction from you. Then at that second meeting is when you vote on it as council. And if there is an opportunity in the procedural bylaw to bring forward a motion without a notice of motion, and it's more, I've not seen it used since I started here. There's a lot of respect for the notice of motion in our process, but there is that opportunity if there was something urgent or emergent that you felt the need to do a notice or do a motion without notice, but you need 2/3 vote for that motion to go through as per our bylaw.
I'll just note, Jolene is fantastic about helping you word a notice of motion. So if you have an idea and you don't know how to do that, you can consult with her and do some back and forth there, and she might ask my or Ms. Phillips' advice. Also, really best practice, there are times where notice of motion is an action item. A best practice notice of motion is a request to bring back more information on a topic. Because we want that administrative lens, they are the experts, and then we can make an actual decision on it within that amount of time. So I try and consider that when crafting it, rather than notice of motion to do something. Could be notice of motion to bring back a report to help us decide to do something.
Yeah. Bylaws. Well, procedure bylaw is probably one of the early ones you see, and there's a couple that have some public hearings coming up as well. Bylaws are enacted with 3 readings. We typically do not do all 3 meetings at one meeting. You can, as long as you have unanimous consent. So all councillors present need to support moving to 3rd reading. Again, here, I've never seen that happen. So maximum of 2 meetings without unanimous consent. With the bylaws, you have the options to debate, amend, and refer for information. If there's any changes to the bylaw after the 1st reading or the 2nd reading, if they're done before the 3rd reading, they are considered to be read twice, even though they weren't part of that initial reading. It's passed after the 3rd reading, and then it's signed, and it's effective that same date, unless there's something in there that states otherwise. If a motion or a bylaw has come forward and has only received 1 or 2 readings and then stays stagnant, and after 2 years nothing happens, it's automatically defeated. Or rescinded, sorry.
If I can add my quick tip sheet summaries on bylaw readings. 1st reading is to get the item on the table. To vote in favor of it doesn't necessarily mean you have to support it. It just means you support talking about it. It's very rare we would defeat something at 1st reading, even if we hated it, because we have no other way to edit, amend, even really discuss it without getting that on the table. You also, if you had some big direction points or questions, first reading is the time for that, so that it comes back at second reading and it's something a little closer to what we wanted to see. The big discussion and the actual, are you in favor of this, typically comes at second and third reading. And that's when we'd really get a feel and you'd want to vote whether you support it or whether you don't support it, not really whether you want to discuss it, is my high-level summary.
And with bylaws, once they're in place, council needs to follow those bylaws. And of course, a bylaw cannot go against provincial legislation, so we can't say, oh, the province doesn't allow this, we're going to. We don't have that option. There's a little more flexibility with policies, but still needs motions to go against the policy.
That's great. And I also see once we are done bylaws here, we're at about another hour, which is the time I think we should have a move and a bio break. So let's take 7 minutes, unless there's more on the bylaw process. Nope. Perfect. Let's take 7. I will set a timer this time.
order.
Ms. Phillips.
All right, the next section is on hearings. We have statutory hearings and non-statutory. So statutory hearings are the ones required by law, a lot around planning. We get a lot of those. And then other ones are optional. So if you decide as a council you want to hear from the public, you're going to open up the floor on the debate on something you're debating, I guess. You could say we want to have a non-statutory public hearing. So a committee of the whole meeting would be a good opportunity to bring forward the non-statutory ones or council, whereas statutory has to be at a council meeting or a special council meeting. Statutory hearings need to happen before second reading. So as the mayor stated, often you put a motion, first reading on the floor, it gets passed, and then there's, with that, if there's a statutory hearing required, you would also then make a motion to set that date as recommended by Planning and Development or whichever department, typically Planning and Development. If you are absent from a public hearing, so if you miss the public hearing date, you are not able to vote on second and third reading if there's a statutory hearing there. There is something about regional, but it's a little different for regional public hearings, but for our public hearings, you cannot vote on them. Okay, addressing to and recognition by the chair. This is just some of those formalities. So all conversation through a council meeting should be through the chair. So for instance, if this is where, if you're not used to using the wording, it can be a little daunting at first, but for instance, if I wanted to answer Councillor Johannesson on something and I put up my hand to speak, the right process would be through the chair or through Deputy Mayor Payne to Councillor Johannesson. So, and the same with myself, technically you're always speaking through me when you're talking to the staff, but we're just kind of, that one we kind of just acknowledge, and you guys speak to the staff member that's sitting here. If they're not sitting here, then it's to me. But so addressing the chair should also be through Mayor or Madam or Mr. Chair or Deputy Mayor. No one else speaks unless recognized by the Mayor. That's why we raise our hands. And if several hands go up, the chair decides the order of speaking. We do consider council to be one of those more sacred areas. We promote with our staff business casual in the council chambers, addressing each other with, you know, what we've provided you a list of the directors. We're typically, I like to go by Ms. Phillips, even though I am a Mrs. At work, I'm Ms. Phillips. Our staff should be recognized by their last name, and we should always be recognizing you by councillor or mayor or deputy mayor. Motions. Motions can get complicated. You make a motion, and then somebody says, I'd like to make an amendment to that, and they make a recommended change, so they make a secondary motion. You can amend a motion up to 2 times as per our bylaw. The way that works is if there's a motion and then an amendment, is that you'd actually vote on the amendment first, and then you vote on the motion with the amendment, if it's passed by the motion, if the motion is successful. You can make a motion to end debate. So if you're just like, okay, this is enough conversation, any member can actually say, I'd like to make a motion to end debate. With that, you do need a 2/3 vote. And that's to help prevent a situation where you're shutting down debate before it's appropriate to, or the room's ready for it, to ensure that enough of the room is ready to say, yeah, I'm tired of discussing this, let's move on. Often the chair will call the question prior to that, but sometimes it can, the debates can get quite a little bit heated, right? So very complex issues where it's not everyone's on agreement, and how do we get there? And then I didn't want to go into a lot of detail on reconsideration of motions and rescinding of motions. There's a lot of background on that. You know, for instance, you can't, as a council, you can come in and say, we'd like to rescind this motion, but if it's been actioned, you can't actually rescind a motion. So there's a lot of details on that one, so I didn't want to get into detail on that one here, but it is in the procedural bylaw if we're ever at that situation. Again, a rare situation. Typically, once a motion's made, it's there.
Just note that Ms. Phillips and Ms. Reynolds are incredible when it comes to wordsmithing motions and helping us through that process. My recommendation, we make easy changes to motions all the time, not all the time, but somewhat regularly. If you're looking for more than that, I'll often suggest we just take a 3-minute recess and work on the wording, rather than try and each throw in, that should be the, and this, and then they can assist us with getting something that will get us the action that we desire out of that. So feel free at any point to ask for advice on wording for a motion, even if it's during the meeting. I want to put forward a different motion. I don't know exactly how to word that, is what I would say if I was a counselor sitting here. Could you help me with this? And we could either have a suggestion ready, or we'll just take a quick break to do that and make sure we get it right.
And at times I'll pipe in just to add a little bit of clarity to your motion, because technically what you say is, so if you state a motion and that gets voted on, that is the motion. So to pass the, whatever, like if it's not enough, a motion should stand on its own. So you should be able to read a motion and know what it means. So when it doesn't, I do sometimes will try to add context and suggest that it gets a little more clarity to it. Public conduct and communications. Public is welcome in council chambers. We love to see members of the public here, but they must maintain order and not disrupt interrupt the proceedings. Aside from question period or registered delegations, they do not have an opportunity to speak. The chair may expel disruptive individuals. If communications come in, this would be more around delegations, then it's reviewed by the CEO to ensure that the item is within the authority of council. Council doesn't have the authority over everything. You have over municipal issues. So if someone brings forward a delegation and wants to bring forward information and you just don't have that authority, we will just let them know that it's actually not within the authority of council. They still have the option to email you and say, hey, we still want to come in, and it would be up to you to decide if you wanted to make an exception, but sometimes you just don't have the authority. If someone's being really disruptive, it's always recommended the chair calls a recess. Give them a chance to to calm the room, and at that time, usually council would actually, if it's because of a disruptive member of the public, all of council are encouraged to leave the room and go into Lewis L. With this one, and kind of tying back to the health and safety presentation, if legislative services, a manager, director, or the mayor says, move to the safe zone, that is our evacuation procedure, that there's a dangerous situation and it's a shelter in place. So it means go to the Lewis L. So council goes there, staff take care of themselves. We leave them to fend for themselves. No, there's other processes for them, which may in fact be the back, but just so if anyone says move to the safe room, it does mean clear now, there's no questions, just go. Closed meetings. We did talk about this a little bit the other day, but meetings must be public unless the subject is protected under the Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection Act, which is changing or has changed, but is still in place. We have to make all changes by June. And the new acts are POPA, so the Protection of Privacy Act, and Access to Information Act, ATIA. So we will be shifting everything over the next few months to reflect that. The resolution must cite the legal basis for the closed session. So when we go into closed, we'll have a motion ready for you as to why we're going into closed. The topic is usually very vague. So it might be legal. Often the titles are legal, land, or personnel. Personnel doesn't necessarily mean staff. It could be council. It could be a variety of issues. So, and then the only motion allowed in closed is to come out of closed. You're not allowed to have any formal decisions. Usually by the end, there's consensus on what the motion is going for, or what's going forward. You have a general consensus in the room, but it's when we go back into open that decision is formally made. And anything discussed in closed is closed. The recommendation, depends on who you talk to. The recommendation is you don't take notes in closed session. If, for some reason, you are, the recommendation is, I had a lawyer say this, write in capital letters on the top of the page, closed. But typically in that room, anything you write in there is actually left with administration. We give you the package normally in the room, not in advance. There are larger items that are a little less sensitive that we're comfortable sending out. We'll usually provide on SharePoint, I believe, for you to review, and then we'll delete them afterwards. But everything in that room is confidential, unless it's a subject that is made public afterwards. Sometimes we discuss it here to bring it here, that's one thing, but most items, what's discussed there stays there. All that comes out is a motion. And even then, sometimes the motions are a little vague, because to protect the privacy under the current FOIP Act. It can be a difficult one to get comfortable with, because you're used to, we really strive, we really take pride in being transparent, but sometimes there's items that just can't be. And then you as council have the authority to create committees through bylaws and terms of reference, and create task force that are created for temporary committees, basically. And you appoint members at the org meeting. You also have the authority to remove a member. So if there was any reason that council decided this member needs to be removed, maybe they're not attending meetings, maybe they're creating some conflict and there's complaints from the group, and you as council decide you are removing them, you have that authority.
Just add on the mayor ex officio comment here. It's often why I'm not the formal alternate on a committee, because it gives us an extra layer of backup, is how we've often used that. So if the committee alternate is unavailable, that generally means that I could also be the backup to the backup, if you're ever looking to cover an absence, and that would be permitted through our bylaws. Councillor Stindy.
Just trying to remember if ex officio also has voting rights. I know certain committees it can't happen, like the lodge, but our own internal ones. Do we
Yes,
know?
she, as ex officio, if she then becomes the alternate, though.
Okay.
Right? So if how I would interpret it is if the member's there and or the alternate's there, they have voting rights, but if they're absent, then the mayor can actually vote.
Okay.
And I'll also add that any councillor can attend any public committee meeting at any time as a spectator. It's not an additional per diem meeting just because you choose to attend more, but if there's something of extra interest to you that you want to sit in the gallery for that meeting to learn about, you absolutely can always do that. You don't need to ask permission ahead of time, because those meetings would be open to the public anyways.
Okay, that's it for procedure bylaw. There's a lot in procedure bylaw. I do strongly encourage you to read that bylaw cover to cover. It is your guiding document, and I'm going to be bringing it forward for amendments. So if you have areas that you think, we'll probably bring it to a committee of the whole first and discuss what we're recommending. So if you have some ideas around that, I think that's a great opportunity there. Okay. All right. Next is the Council Administration Responsibilities Policy. This one was adopted in my tenure here, so it's a fairly new policy. So we're going to start with information requests. A lot of this one's about communications as well. So if you have simple information requests or requests for service, so like we were talking about, there's a garbage spilt, or, again, we encourage those through the website, but this is an opportunity to also bring forward items that don't take an extensive amount of time, staff time. Because like I was saying earlier, you as a councillor cannot give direction for us to do work. So if you're saying, can you take care of this and this and this, and it's like, okay, that's going to take Public Works, 4 hours, well, you've just directed staff to do a job. So it's not intended for that. But you can, for the simple information and requests, you would email myself. Again, the proper process. I am not on the council members' email list. My 3 staff are, I am not. Okay, my 3 ledge girls are. So if you do council members and then copy me, then you've kind of covered us all. Sorry, email me, copy council members is how that should be. If you're not sending it to all of council, which would be a very rare one, really recommended, just include everyone from the beginning. But if there's just a lot of back and forth, I'll still include Anna at least. Sorry, Ms. Cooper-Abel. She really supports me in my role. So she really helps me with these requests, making sure they get action. So it's always good to have her included. For straightforward resident complaints, we talked about report of concern already. Any information, and this is according to the MGA, any information provided to one councillor does need to be shared with all. So for instance, there was a recent email that came through. It had been copied to the mayor. I made sure that the response was forwarded to all of council. And we do respond, aim to respond to simple inquiries from council within 48 hours, 72 hours if it's over the weekend. And that is also direction that was given to me when I was hired, the clear expectations in my role. So if it's going to take longer than that, we do try to give you a heads up that you are working on this. Something just might be a little more complicated, or that director's away and I'm trying to get information, or whatever it might be. Or it might just be one that does take more time and it's going to sit. We have a couple. Ms. Cooper-Abel does keep a spreadsheet of all council requests, so another reason to copy her. And she also nags everybody to make sure they're getting those responses in a timely manner. If it's a complex inquiry, if a lot of research, a lot of work to action it, or, over 4 hours of administration time is the guideline, or if there's budget inquiries, it may require council approval. So it needs to come to council, and that's where you would submit that notice of motion, and then it's discussed at a council meeting and voted on. And then we'll action it. I already went over this one pretty good on the last one. This was the better breakdown of exactly what happens with notices of motion, but as you get to one and you want to bring something forward, engage us in the process and we'll ensure that, through the mayor, through Callie, sorry. Oh, I can't remember her last name. Gray, thank you. That we can help you with that process. And of course, Ms. Reynolds. Communication with administration, all verbal and written requests must go through myself. Again, I'm your only employee. Often I will engage my team for those answers, and that's another reason we need the 48 to 72 hours, is to make sure that it's going from here to here. And again, that's where Ms. Cooper-Abel's very helpful in that sometimes if I'm really busy, she'll ensure that she's forwarded them on to get those responses. You might get responses directly back from one of the directors. And then, if you were to reply to all for more clarification, that would be appropriate, but any general, and I always make sure I'm included on any communication other than the one we talked about, like with an IT thing where it's your computer. Actually, I think we still said to copy me on that one and Mr. Moore, actually, so.
I think that was just Darren on that one, if it was
Okay,
to
Darren,
the
thank
support.
you. Yeah,
But
thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry, I had a little note at the bottom there. If you're getting a response from administration and you're wanting to respond to someone online for something on social media, please do not copy and paste administration's email online. You can comment on the information, you can share the information in your own words, but please don't just copy administration's emails in there. Absences, if you're away as a councillor, over 200 kilometers away, or a lack of communication. So if you don't have good cell service, then you're considered absent. It's really important we know how many councillors are away, and this isn't really through myself, it's through the EA and the mayor. If there's an emergency, we may need more of council, and to make sure that there's quorum in the event of something urgent comes up with a special council meeting. If you're going to be away from a committee meeting, ensure that your alternate is aware and see if they're available, and if not, again, through the mayor. Check exemption eligibility. There's a form required. I don't know if you have, is that the one you already spoke to?
it's a secondary form, but it looks kind of the same, just different words in the top corner.
And then when you return, make sure you're checking in to see what you missed from whatever meetings you were absent from. Deputy Mayor responsibilities is to ensure smooth council operations during the mayor's absence by chairing meetings effectively. And if the mayor is attending virtually, she will also hand over chair of the meeting to the deputy mayor. It's just easier to run a meeting if you're in the room. So if the mayor is unavailable for formal official functions, she may ask the deputy mayor to step in. You are able to log in your timesheet hours for creating your own speeches. But again, I will state that when you're speaking on behalf of, or generally when you're speaking, it's interpreted that you're speaking on behalf of council. So always keep that in mind, and that you're always a councillor no matter where you are, what you're doing. If you're in town anywhere, you are a councillor. So, but with this, your speech must align with the view of council. So we encourage you to actually submit it to the EA of the mayor so it can be reviewed, just to ensure that there's nothing that doesn't align with the previous motions and actions of council.
And I'll just note that speech prep, you can heavily lean on myself and administration for. I can often share a speech that I've already written for it. If it was a last minute absence, I'll probably just have something to turn over and you can edit some words to make it you. I can share the previous year's speech, or for an example, like the chamber event, we can lean on Miss Gray, and she can provide you with notes to include within your speech of highlights within that department. You're really not on your own to do that.
And they engage in the agenda setting meeting. Again, we send the cover letters and maintains regular communication with the mayor and consults during urgent situations. We want to make sure that we're leading the community well. Any questions on that policy? Again, that's a fairly new one. Okay. All right, council remuneration policy, and there were some changes in this recently, so we're going to work through those and maybe have a little bit more conversation here is what I'm understanding. Council remuneration, and I didn't go into the details on how this works, but it is reviewed every election year by a citizen committee regarding recommending changes, and then those changes are approved by the former council to ensure that it's not you, brand new, sitting around the horseshoe making a decision on how much you get paid. So that's our process. Salaries are adjusted based on the Alberta Consumer Price Index and with formal approval. External boards are often paid by the external board committee or commission, and if the board pays less than the per diem rate, you can be topped up to match that amount, our per diems.
I'll just say the only board I am aware of, if you are on an Alberta Municipalities Board, or sorry, Alberta Municipalities Committee, that would be an external payment. Also, if you sit on the Parkland Executive, so not for their regular meetings, but their executive meeting is when this would come into play. All other boards that I'm aware of are paid directly from the town.
Commission?
Wastewater Commission? I don't believe. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd
great.
say that one's typically from the commission, so.
Thank you.
Okay, and then deputy mayor and mayor compensation, so the honorarium that you get includes your public appearances made in official capacity. The back of this document has an attachment that really goes into detail on those committees and stuff as well, so. Compensation rates, so again, this was changed. So the mayor is officially full-time as of the org meeting. So she no longer gets per diems. So everything's all inclusive in this rate. So although it looks like a big difference, it's actually, it includes everything now. Whereas councillors still receive the honorarium plus the per diems. Payments are bi-monthly, and with that, we're going to update this policy because it says honorariums are paid twice a month. We're going to change it to say, the way we currently do it is all your meetings, all your per diems are paid in the middle of the month and your honorarium at the end of the month, except for the mayor's, which will be split into two with council. This month will be a little weird because you'll get the per diems from previous, and then we'll catch up for next month. And then there's various rates depending on the meeting lengths. Again, everything's in the as you submit it on Dayforce, it automatically does the calculations for you. So, and if you need assistance with Dayforce, I'm going to encourage you to meet with Ms. Gray, and/or we'll bring in others to walk through that process. It's hard. We debated bringing it up and going through it here, but we're talking payroll and thought it may not be appropriate on big screen live streamed. The number of hours, see, this is where I was a little confused now that I've written this. The number of hours that can be claimed for, oh, that's other councillors, for public appearances shall not exceed an average of 6 hours per week.
That is only for the deputy mayor.
Okay.
You can't claim more than 6 hours of speech writing a week.
Okay.
That has never happened in my time ever. So I think it's just to put a limit to protect ourselves. No one's giving that many speeches.
That's a lot. And then this one is just overall the examples of per diems that what you'll get paid for. So budget presentation. So as we add extra budget meetings next month, you'll get paid extra for those conferences, training, open houses, committee meetings such as community services, library board, public appearances made by the deputy mayor acting in official capacity, and then members. And I don't think I was working here when I was listening to this one, actually. Meetings of official capacity with members of the legislature, so MLAs, MPs, and where an invitation has been accepted to discuss matters of the municipality. So it's not just attending any, which gets into here, any political party functions, it's very specific. What you're typically not paid for, which are either exempt or part of your honorarium, so you're paid for it automatically as a councillor, is the honorarium, for instance, covers all of our regular council meetings, committee of the whole meetings. If you attend a parade or a sporting event, tournaments, golf tournaments, grand openings of businesses, general public appearances, community events such as Canada Day, and social events, as well as any other political party functions. And again, this goes into great detail in Appendix D. And if you don't know, I believe the mayor said, put it in your timesheet. She can always remove it and let you know that that one didn't actually count, or ask the question.
Yeah, just, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
For, just I had a question about, obviously, the Alberta Munis. We're supposed to travel on Tuesday. Are we putting Tuesday in?
Yes,
the day
so
for us?
you'll put in, I assume travel to our hotel is just under 2 hours. So 0 to 2 hours on Tuesday.
Okay.
And then it will likely be a full day Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday,
Okay.
because it's a half day of meetings plus your travel home.
Okay.
We'll tip that Saturday to a full day.
And golf tournaments are a no-go?
Golf tournaments are no-go. You know,
disappointing.
really the bar that I use is.
I want to get paid to golf, you know, I don't know.
The bar that I use is like, did I have too much fun and were there food and beverage options available to me? It's probably a no. We do have that category within our day force that is an unpaid meeting, and you can also use that if you think it's not covered, but you're not sure, because if you've entered it and put it as unpaid, and if I say, oh no, this actually should be, and actually Councillor Ostendi, I upgraded one of your meetings this last week. It's really easy for me to just change the category because you've already had it entered in. And also within your day force, you can see any changes that have been made. I can show you how to get to that if you need to, so that you can go back and check.
Okay, and then just for clarification, you said middle of the month, so what, 15th, and end of the month, literally last day of the month?
Yes.
Is that what you mean by that? And then I think we had talked before, you get paid for the month beforehand, so November gets paid at the end of December?
Correct, yes. Other questions on that? The reference sheet is really great, but we tried so hard to capture all the examples, and we're still missing a whole lot because it's just impossible to categorize every one of them. So it's a bit of a learn as we go, and I'll say there still is probably 1 or 2 a month that I have to refer back and say, second opinion, does this count or not? And
Pretty good guidelines within the policy where we can usually interpret, yes, that is, or no, that wouldn't be, based on some wording. So we usually give some backing on it. The council expenses are governed by the travel and expense claim policy for transportation and accommodations and meals. And then we also have a new addition to this one, which is Appendix C, which we're going to get to. So I also encourage you, especially leading up to the convention, read the travel and expense claim policy. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll find it for you, but we'll send it to you. Actually, Ms. Cooper-Abel, or Reynolds, could we maybe send that policy out to them, the travel and expense claims? And it gives those guidelines, or not guidelines, policy.
And the form for those is also next to your mailboxes. It's one of the slots there that you can fill out when you get back.
And you need to submit your remuneration within 90 days of incurring the expenses to be reimbursed. So you can't wait till the end of the year. Well, this year you could, but you know what I mean? You can't wait till the end of your term or the end of a full calendar year and then go, oh, I need all these expenses. It needs to be within 90 days. And we're real sticklers on that with this year's expenses. So if it's like November's convention, just make sure they're in by the end of the year so that they're reflected in this year's budget. Otherwise, you're using your next year's allocation. I mean, at the beginning of the year, it's fine, but as we get later, we can't charge back. So, this is the extra one that has been added, and we'll talk about it here. But councilors should try to adjust their schedules to minimize extra expenses. But eligible extra expenses that were added to, and this was to promote inclusion, I believe, to make it easier for people to run for council and get more people running for council. So eligible reimbursable expenses are childcare, alternate staffing arrangements due to council duties, loss of wages from primary employment, and income loss allowances for self-employed or commission-based officials. There's an overall annual rate that you get back. The way this is worded is $2,800 a year, but a maximum of, if it's less than 4 hours, you get $100 back. More than 4 hours, it's $200 back, and childcare's actual costs reimbursed. And then the claims must be approved by the mayor. And I believe there might have been some questions about this one, so.
Yeah, I have well, I'll give you some background. For the last 12 years, I've been going to Alberta Munis every year, and it costs me about $1,500 a year to go, because I end up having to pay, I end up losing wages for the 3 days I go, then I also end up having to pay sub costs. So it's always been very expensive. This year, it's gonna cost me about $2,300 to go to AUMA, or Alberta Munis. So this reimbursement, being able to have the costs covered for me to go, it was a welcome thing. But the $200 a day is the part that I have a problem with, because the $200 a day doesn't even cover my sub costs. And I would have to, like, essentially you're having to go for 14 days of any conference or any training or whatever the case is, in order to be able to take advantage of that $2,800. So my belief is that the maximum amount per day shouldn't be an issue. That if I exhaust the $2,800, that, you know, so let's say for instance I end up going to FCM, then that's out of my own pocket. That's a choice I make. I don't have a choice to go to Alberta Munis. I have to go. And in having to go, it's costing me nearly that amount every year. So if we have a policy that allows us to be reimbursed for the loss of wages and the cost to go, then I think it should be, you know, without that per diem. And I'm sure there are other people around the table that are in a similar situation, that the $200 a day simply does not do much for me. It doesn't do anything in terms of my wages at all. And it actually doesn't even cover the sub cost per day.
So Ms. Phillips, and then I'll jump to you, Councillor Mearns. You had a bit of a potential solution if council had the will of changing just that daily amount, not the overall budget. That is.
This is a committee of the whole, and this is a policy, so that makes it easier. If I get the general direction from the room tonight, I could bring this policy back to the council meeting on Monday. I won't make all the changes that need to be made in here because there's a few, but we could just bring back a quick turnaround to change this to say we could still keep those reimbursement rates, but then say or actual costs of reimbursement for labor. And then my only other question is, it says annual cap for wage loss. Is that annual from org meeting to org meeting? Because I think that should be clear too. Because I think if we say annual, does that mean you get $2,800 now and then again in January? And we just need that clarity for budget. So if we say between org meetings, I would also recommend I throw that in there, if that's the general support from the room.
I would recommend that as well. Councillor Mearns.
Yeah, I would support that. The only concern I have with that is org meeting to org meeting, we're going to have 2 Alberta Munis in that time frame this year, if it's org meeting to org meeting. So I would recommend it calendar year.
Okay. And
that would be my recommendation. Just to cover it, but unless there's another option, but there would be 2 in this org to org year for you.
If our calendar years does align with our budget cycle as well.
Yep.
So there is some benefit in that. Councillor Ostindi.
I support the notion too that we're discussing. I think it's worthwhile bringing back. Another policy related to tonight's discussions is our absences calendar year or org meeting to org meeting. So just I see Councillor Mearns saying calendar year?
That was calendar year.
It is calendar year, but that has always been a bit clunky in that case. And when we ever do get a chance to change it, that's one I'd recommend because the way that the year goes.
And I'm assuming that for a portion of the year, given this is a councillor can start today or start last week and then carry on to December 31st and then start the annual cap, this would be prorated to a portion of the year then. That would be my assumption too.
That makes sense.
They can't pull out 2,800 between now and December 31st and then get a fresh start January 1st.
I would disagree with that, just in Councillor Payne's
He's continuing.
circumstance.
He's continuing.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, but a new councillor.
got it.
One suggestion could be, and we have this, I can't remember in what other, in our professional development planning, there's just a specific parameter that says in an election year, only 80% of this eligible is, or 80% of this budget or whatever it is eligible to be used prior to October. So it, just on that election year, does limit it a little bit. Sure, Councillor Honig.
Yeah, now I'll just echo what Councillor Payne said. It's just the $200, I don't mean to put too much emphasis on it, but I scoff at, right? It's just like, oh, yay, you know, that's a half hour of my time, right? So it's just one of those things. It starts cutting people out of the equation. Although the $2,800 is not an enormous sum, at least it helps give a little bit of flexibility to people who are like, maybe you might not want to run for a council job because it's such a wage hit or a potential wage hit. Just food for thought.
I'd say I was really excited about the policy overall because it is a bit of a leveler. There are different costs to different people to be counselors. They've done this really successfully in Okotoks was one we looked at, but a couple of other places where there is a different cost for someone who has, say, childcare, because all of our meetings are in the evening and you pay an insane amount for evening childcare versus someone who is retired with no other job and no kids. So it's just a bit of a leveler. Just a quick head nod. Do we have any objections to this coming back on Monday and just removing the parameter of $200, keeping the total budget the same? Does anyone have a challenge with that? Okay. Do we have any other comments on that, Ms. Councillor Bilodeau? No, I thought I saw a hand starting there. Great, let's carry on.
Right. And you would have gone over the benefits with payroll already, so I'm not going to go into details there. If you have questions, let us know. This would be more through HR anyways. And then travel time, Councillor Johannesson addresses the questions you had. So you can be compensated for travel only outside of the town. It should be the most efficient route. I bring my dogs to Camrose before going to Calgary. It's just, I don't get this, just to be clear. But if I was a councillor, it would just be from here to Calgary. Longer trips, travel time is calculated to the lodging location. And if there's same-day travel, then you are compensated for the meeting plus travel, or if you're there the night before, just the travel time. So you're not paid all night. You're paid from here to there and then the next day.
Councillor Oostende, was that a, nope, sorry.
Okay. And then submitting time. Again, and this may be one that at a future date, maybe, I mean, this is something, I'll leave it at that. Okay. Councillors must submit their payroll on Dayforce by noon, the second day of the month, or you forfeit getting paid. So it's very strict.
Councillor Payne?
That can't be legal. You can't legally say to somebody, you've worked the hours, you don't get paid because you didn't hand your paycheck or your pay advance in or whatever it is. Like to me, like I suck at this. I'm the first to admit I'm horrible at getting the Dayforce in. But the whole idea of forfeiting your pay because you forget or whatever the case is, to me it's just wrong.
What I will note, we did get some legal advice on this, but when this policy comes back, we have the opportunity to debate that. Currently, this is what that is. And I'll say it is a real administrative challenge to reopen it once it's closed, which is why this had to come into play. We really opened ourselves up to some challenges in doing that. So there was a reason, but if
we were to say the second business day, then I would have less of an issue with this. Like, part of the issue I've had in the past is I'm like, the second is on a Sunday. Monday morning, I look at my computer, because I don't look at things on Sundays. Monday morning, I look at my computer and realize I didn't get my Dayforce in. So to me, it's frustrating. And, you know, am I lazy? Yes. Could I do this 2 weeks before? Absolutely. But it's just, to be so fixed is, to me, it just doesn't seem right. It's just, forfeiture just seems wrong.
I will note that just a best practice is, because we have to submit those committee reports, and they're actually tied within that, you really should be doing it the day of your meeting. At the end of the month, your timesheet should not be blank for the whole month until then. If you're entering it as you go or every Friday, it will help keep us all in good shape. And then if by chance something is missed, it's just the last day or two. But great practice is to do it the same time you submit your committee report. Yes.
I can get some feedback from payroll on what is the firm date, because your pay is the 15th, we might be able to push, if council agrees, we might be able to push that out a little bit. And then you guys can debate if there should be other considerations where, you know, a certain timeline that you'd accept to be paid the next month or something. So that I won't make changes on that one for Monday. Is that okay? But then we'll bring this one back, or do you want me to find out from payroll and put a different date in there, and then any other debate can be at a further time, later time?
I think we should leave that one as a part of the greater conversation, knowing that it's coming.
Do you need great? Need to put some reminders in your phone?
Callie actually has a reminder in all of our phones.
Okay. And there are some exceptions there, if, you know, illness, bereavement, emergencies. Must confirm attendance with EA supported, for your payroll to committee meetings. So you need to confirm your attendance. You should be submitting the meeting minutes that confirm you're at a meeting. And council committees claims require verification.
This is where you really need to submit that report at the same time. That's how we verify your attendance. It's not done by letting her know every time. It's by checking the committee reports.
There seems to be a lot of changing of committee times right now, just because we're getting going. You know, what I was told was the third Wednesday is now the last Wednesday or whatever. So who is the person to contact just to keep it simple? Because I'm worried about missing a meeting.
That's a great question. Callie would be our ultimate contact, but really, and this is the challenge, there is a different contact for each committee, and that is who you need to reach out to on every one of those, whoever is the organizer, because she does not attend all of those committee meetings. Now, if you can't get an answer from the meeting organizer, we can certainly go to her and she will help us hunt that answer down. But every one of your committees at the first meeting, you'll get their contact list. So at the library, it's the library director. At the lodge, it's the lodge director. And that's who your go-to is. And there is a bit of chasing and follow-up, unfortunately, because some committees are really well organized and have someone professionally doing that. Others are volunteer organized, and that is more chaotic.
I'm almost done, just saying. I did throw this one. This one is not in the policy, but I thought it was good to bring attention to. You're all getting credit cards. There needs to be some accountability there. As per the MGA, you actually don't have authority as a councillor to spend money unless it's, you know, according to our policies. So you can use a corporate credit card for expenses related to official duties that fall within the travel and expense claims policy. If it's a credit card transaction, because you'll see in the travel and expense claims policy, there is an option to just claim a per diem for the day for meals without receipts. But if you're using your credit card, you need a receipt. So you have to submit a receipt. And I will say within there, and if you read the policy, it does state that, you know, okay, breakfast is this amount, lunch is this amount, dinner is this amount. If you're going to if you're going to a conference and food is provided, the policy states that your meals aren't covered except for exceptional circumstances that may be approved by the mayor. Because there are times that is appropriate, right? But within that per diem, if you were away somewhere that didn't have meals and you were covered for, say, 3 meals, the daily amount is appropriate. So you could say I spent way more on breakfast because I went for this big buffet, but I only went to McDonald's for dinner. My overall per diem is under that total amount. Then it's the total amount that matters. Does that make sense? I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it. If you are out for dinner and you choose to have an alcoholic beverage with your meal, ask for separate checks. You are not reimbursed for alcohol. So, meal with your credit card, alcohol paid with on your own, and you're good to go. Our receipts are, everything's audited, right? So it's important that we're following proper.
It's not about alcohol. It's about tipping. Taxation around tipping is very particular. So if we're required to pay for our own breakfast, are we being told?
18%
okay.
is what is permitted.
And that's what I want to know. I'm assuming all this information will be in the policy that we'll get with the credit card?
Well, so the legislative is going to send you the policy, probably already has, knowing these ladies. So it'll be there, and if you have any questions. And I will be at convention with you next week, so if you guys have questions on that.
Also note, on your receipt, write the name. So let's give an example. We're attending a conference together and the breakfast is not provided on the first day, and myself and Councillor Payne are the ones there, so we go for breakfast. I might pay for that all on one of our 2 town credit cards, but I would itemize on the top who I was with and just write the name of, if there was another person, who it was for. Sometimes it's easier to just do it separately, but lots of times that just makes sense.
And another counselor or a suitable person, like we're not obviously paying for spouses or other people there, but there are also times where you might have a business lunch with somebody where you're paying. You'd have to talk to the mayor.
I can say I think I have only had one non-council meal in my entire 4 years that I got pre-approval from the CAO for. So you really should never be buying a meal for someone.
I wasn't sure about if you're meeting with a minister, like if you guys have any processes or anything around that. So.
There have been a couple of times I've had that conversation, and then the minister has often, if their office extended that invite. But if it's ever anyone that is not a part of that policy, I would just double check with myself or the CAO first to keep us all in the clear, but it really doesn't happen.
Because there's definite liability with council spending money that's not approved. Mm-hmm. Don't go buy stuff for the town, it's not okay. I threw this in here, but I'm not going to go through this, but this appendix at the back provides some clarity, but again, if you're not sure, just ask the question and we'll get you an answer. And then I just have a couple other short slides. There's 4, so.
Councillor Johannesson?
I'm just, I think maybe you're not going to do it because it's after what you just showed, but there seems to be some sort of discrepancy unless I'm missing this. I'm looking at remuneration here and it looks like it's been simplified. Now it's just up to 4 hours and over 4 hours. Right. Whereas the day force still has 2 to 4, or under 2 hours is 56, but now this is just, it's 128 for up to 4 hours and 256 for over 4 hours.
That is a great catch. Dayforce has not been updated. That was a change that would have come into effect after the organizational meeting.
Or was
Councillor Ostindi.
Yes, I was just going to raise that too, because I noticed that as well. That, I believe, was the not approved version. I don't believe we took up what that was from the committee, the remuneration committee. They recommended a change in the categories and we didn't pick up on that. We said we were going to keep the short category, the 0 to 2 hour one.
Where are you looking, Councillor?
It's page 70.
Yeah, it's just right after the appendix.
Just right after that page that was shown on the screen.
You are right, and
this was the committee's
right,
recommendation to us,
but we did
not adopt that piece.
I think you could be right. Let's just clarify, and we can send a follow-up email on that either way. You're right. I do believe now that you're saying it, we might have kept the original because we thought there are some meetings, and MPC is an example, where I've attended a 14-minute meeting. It's really hard to charge for 3.5 hours. So yeah, I believe we didn't adopt that.
And we kept the same rates, because I remember arguing we should recognize inflation, and we did not agree. So we kept it at the old rate.
We will send a follow-up note just to clarify, because my memory went one way and then the other way, which tells me there's some question here.
Well, and the other issue is that it's in the policy, but it can be changed, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well,
I'll need more clarification, but thank you. Yeah. Okay, we'll clarify.
thank you.
Okay. Code of conducts, I mentioned this earlier, they've been repealed by the province. There isn't one in place, but the province is going to put one in place in the spring. We'll see what happens. I know, I'm hoping we'll hear some direction at convention, but I doubt it because it's only November. Meeting etiquette, some just high-end notes, so be prepared, as Councillor or Deputy Mayor Payne mentioned, review your agenda packages, get us those questions prior to Monday morning, like Friday night or Friday reading them, or even over the weekend, make sure we get them early so we can have time on Monday to answer you. Treat everyone with respect. Councillors, municipal staff, public with dignity and respect. Respect council's position, individual councillors, or council's position. Individual councillors must accurately reflect the council's official position, even if you personally disagree. That is your role, it's in the MGA. Respect confidentiality, closed sessions. Council administration, I mentioned this earlier, we're all on the same team. And I do ask, and I really respect council, the previous council was really great with this. If you have concerns with administration, and I get that sometimes there's frustration that comes through in the discussion, but if you have an issue with any of my team, or myself technically, but I'm more worried about my team, it shouldn't be a discussion around the council table. It should be a conversation afterwards. For instance, we had an incident last year where there was some concerns over a report that came through and what was brought forward, and with a specific employee, it was brought to my attention, which allowed me to deal with that and also accept some responsibility myself that I should have double checked a few things, right? So it comes back to me, and attacking staff at a council meeting is never okay, and it's really hard on our team dynamics, and I think we all take great pride in having a strong council culture in the town of Sylvan Lake, and I'm excited to see that continue. So just that reminder, we're on your team, you're on our team, you really impact our culture as well. So it's really good to have that mutual respect. So if there's issues, tell me, or through the mayor, even, whichever.
And let me add, I often have shared this story, so incoming councillors would know this, but one time I did some volunteer work through an organization, and I came and presented to council with Councillor Rilling. And I had sat for many of years around this table, no problem, and then I moved seats, and my throat started closing in. Like, it was terrifying. And I am extremely comfortable in this room. I had spent many of years there, and I often remember that feeling of what it must feel like from someone from administration as they sit into that seat. I hope at some point in your time in council, you have the chance to move there, even just for a short presentation or for something, because it was a really humbling experience to me for how nerve-wracking that was. And I often remember that if there's a concern that we want, I really appreciate the fact that our CAO allows staff to come and present, and we can ask questions of the person who is the expert on that report. But if we behave badly, we'll lose that opportunity, and the CAO will be the only person we hear from. And I hope that's never the case, because
and they'll be on Teams giving me information.
Incredibly intelligent, but there are experts within our organization for a reason. I also want to note we are coming up at 7 o'clock. We only have 2 more slides, but let's follow procedure. Would someone be interested in making a motion? Councillor Mearns.
I'll make a motion to go past 7 o'clock.
Thank you. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried. We do not have very far to go here, but.
Okay. The next one, we have a media relations policy I encourage you to review. Any media requests requesting an interview with or regarding to town council actions or policies will be referred to communications officer for coordination through the EA to council. The mayor is the spokesperson for council. So when we have a media request, And again, last year, a counselor was approached and said, hey, I'm being asked to be interviewed regarding whatever was going on, and my advice to her was the media policy actually states this, so I would actually have a conversation with the mayor, and she's like, oh, thank you, and deferred it. I think then there was no comment, but not from you, that she just said, no, I will not comment, I'm not the spokesperson, so. And then the EA to council will coordinate media requests for a council representative with the communications officer. So coordinates usually the mayor with the community. I think you have, there's a little flexibility there with the communications officer and contact with the mayor following council meetings and stuff where we do breach the policy about only going through me for everything because communications is a little bit kind of like IT. And you'll see staff commenting with the media as well, and our communications officer is really good that way, knowing who can and should make comments and reviews all information before it goes out. So, social media, I did send out an email today, coincidentally. There's a great document there from Alberta municipalities. It's a difficult one, you guys. In those chairs, I know it is. I know personally there's certain sites I just don't follow because there's so much negativity out there. So just be careful, read that document. Remember, you're always a councillor. When you say something on social media, people think you're speaking on behalf of council. So keep that in mind, and that you're always a councillor. And my big advice here is you cannot influence change on social media, but you can in this room. But that's only going to happen if you have 3 other people voting with you. So work with your team, make things happen. You have some great opportunities in the next 4 years. It's really exciting. The last slide, very, very brief. Ms. Cooper-Abel handed out your stamps. For the most part, one needs to be corrected, and a book. Please read the book to know how to do Commissioner of Oath before you're stamping documents and know what you can and cannot do. I believe Councillor Iwanicki, you might have a bit of a background in this one and not need this one, but you are technically a Commissioner of Oath as well as right? As well as in your official capacity. So, but with this office, you can administer oaths, take and receive affidavits, affirmations, and declarations in Alberta. You cannot charge for these services, but I really encourage you to read that document and know what you're doing before you do it. As administration, we actually have to take a test and everything else and go through a lawyer before we can do this. This is by oath of virtual, you're a Commissioner of Oath by virtue of office. So read the manual, and you can also direct people to, is that what you were just going to say? To Wellness and Community Connections. They do them on behalf of the town on a regular basis. And we do not charge.
Exactly. When in doubt, defer it to someone who has taken the test, not us. I've only commissioned a handful of things over the years, and they are the most simple of things that I would ever feel comfortable doing. As an example, a couple of times I've witnessed or I've commissioned that I've witnessed their signature, like really low level. I would not want to be the one in charge of anyone's legal document because I'm not trained well enough to do that. And I encourage you not to think that you are either, just because they gave us a stamp. We can always refer it to others, but it is handy to have for some really simple things. Councillor Payne.
Read the book, because I've literally done hundreds. So. It depends on where you are in the world, I guess, because for me, it happens. I get people walking into my office constantly. So read the book. The book's a good thing.
And you are still responsible if you do things incorrectly. That's why reading that book and knowing where your authority actually is important, right? That is all I have. Are there any questions or comments before I hand it over? All right. You will not normally hear me speak this much at a council meeting.
That was a lot. Thank you so much. We were really trying to get through as much of that orientation as we could before we head off to Alberta municipalities. Really looking forward to that opportunity to kind of have some casual time together and do a bit of learning and ask each other questions on the floor while we're there. So looking forward to that. Just a couple other things on the agenda, council committee and event reports. This is where any report you've submitted would show up. Councillor Ostindi, I know that you also submitted one, but we had some technical challenges, so that will come on the next one, but I do encourage you to read the one that was submitted around a meeting with the minister's office. on health. And at the next one, there will be substantially more because by then we've all started some of our committee meetings. And I would even encourage, if you take really great sessions that have some takeaways at Alberta municipalities. I wouldn't do this for everyone, but if you have a couple key points, this is a great way to ensure that it's captured for us. Upcoming meetings and events, there's a couple listed on there. Looking forward to chatting with council coming up later this week. And also the Bull Rider Canada Finals. We'll receive some more details on that prior to Friday around any delegates that we might expect to see up in our seats. I think we have at least a couple of ministers potentially. Their confirmations are hazy at best. But I think there's a good chance we'll see some ministers attend this event, so we'll prepare for that. Any other questions, council? Councillor Payne, would you like to adjourn the meeting? I hijacked it there.
Meeting's adjourned.